you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit, and now here's your host, Rich Barris.
Hey folks, welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris. Mark and Eric will join us later. They're going to bring FreeForm Friday over to Freewheelin Friday. I already see some great questions, all right, so get them in the Q&A. I'm going to try to answer some of them actually before they even come on. If you have questions for Mark and Eric, hold off on them until we get to their segment, which will be around 1 o'clock or so. All right, so looking at the polling, let's shake the crystal ball. Let's shake the magic ball, all right? Let's see. There's two things I want to talk about. One is the difference between online collection and phone collection when you're talking about midterms and you're talking about presidential cycles, okay? Some perform better than others, and how you distribute those samples, what share of the total sample you use for each of them is definitely going to impact the overall result of the poll. There's no doubt about it. So going over 2022, looking back all the way to 2016, 2020, hell, even 2018, the Virginia governor's race in Virginia, we did very well with that. Why? Right? There most definitely is something that I'm seeing that will, if a pollster uses too much of one sample, not enough of another, or vice versa, they're going to get the wrong result. All right. Also, I want to talk a little bit more too about this. We talked about the Trump or bust vote. All right. And a lot of DeSantis people are arguing, well, they're cultists, right? Trump supporters are cultists and they won't vote, or they're really voting for Biden. My good friend Kurt says this a lot. No, you really are voting. You're voting for Biden. And I think there's something that needs to be distinguished here. It needs to be said, which is that now that we've had time to take a look at the difference, this Trump or bust vote, we're the only pollster doing this. Definitely. And definitely in detail. And we have a history of this. In 2016, the reason why we were accurate and others were not is very simple. We believed the Trump or bust vote. Some of these people had not voted since Bush v. Gore. Some had just quit the process altogether. Others were new voters. Others were Bernie voters who didn't want to vote for Hillary Clinton. It was a very complicated coalition. And among these voters, Trump was just crushing Hillary Clinton. All right. This injection of new voters that made the electorate go from about 120 million to almost 140 million. That was, or 137, if I remember correctly. That was this injection of people who had just essentially said, I'm not voting anymore. I'm done. So despite how much Hillary Clinton won these big blue states, New York and California, which Trump did better in urban areas in 2020, several urban areas, the high population urban areas, Chicago, Los Angeles, hell folks, even Beverly Hills, Dorchester and Massachusetts, Honolulu, Hawaii. I mean, just crazy numbers he was cranking out. Chicago, Illinois. Biden did well where Biden needed to do well, which is one of the most kind of ridiculous things about it. Barack Obama won almost 1,000 counties, right? Against Mitt Romney. Joe Biden won 400 and change. That's about it. A little about 500 almost. So he got an excessive amount of votes where he needed to get an excessive amount of votes. So whomever the Republican nominee is, they're going to have to contend with this. Right now, there's something I want to say real quick, which is that it looks like when, again, there's phone collection, there's online collection, when everything's calibrated, it looks like Trump is going to be 70 or north of 70 when it comes to the conservative, self-identified conservative vote. Ironically, the phone collection is a lot more educated, so it looks like DeSantis is doing better than he is. However, and it's a lot more male. It's male educated, right? And when you look at it, it's geography, right? And how people participate in these different modes. At the end of the day, however, when you look at just the working class in the phone, Trump's margin among the working class primary vote is even bigger in the phone than it is with online collections. So I'm being careful with, some firm numbers that I'm going to say here, but I think it's going to be, if it's, not north of 70%, it'll be about 70%. And people are starting to dig their heels in. Laura and I were laughing hysterically yesterday, right? I wish I could show some of these, whether it's phone interviews, peer-to-peer. Hold on, you know what? I want to, where is he, Laura? Where is he? There's one that I wanted to pull out because he was so, right, Laura? There's one who was so obvious I wanted to pull. He was cool, dude. He was cool. Mike from Nutley, New Jersey. And that's funny. He's from Nutley, Laura. Mike from Nutley, New Jersey is a perfect example.
This guy was funny.
Hilarious, right? And he's like, hey, Mike, this is so-and-so with Big Data Bowl. We're conducting a survey on the 2024 elections. Interviews will only take a few short minutes to complete. We go through our spiel. And he just is like, it's Trump 2024, bro. All right, now go yourself. And I don't get mad. Pollsters are like the most abused people in the world. They are, but I don't feel bad for us because we annoy you guys. So I get it. We're irritating people. All right. So, but he's so indignant. There's another one from Ohio within like 2 minutes, just like that. People are really starting to dig their heels in. Whereas after the November elections, it really did feel like a lot of stuff was fluid. Maybe there was a lane for DeSantis. Right now, Harry Enton wrote a piece for CNN, and I think he makes a really good point. That lane is shrinking significantly because Trump is getting a larger majority now. It's a heavy lift, all right? There are a few reasons why I think DeSantis is going to have a very hard time, or anybody, because now there's a draft Kemp. You guys see this? There's a draft Kemp campaign going on because DeSantis is hurting, and big donors who were backing DeSantis, several of them have hightailed it. One, we've talked about this before. I hate to say this, but Larry Sabato was right. If you didn't see his appearance on CNN, speaking of Harry Enton, he actually is right. When Larry's not acting like a crazy, vehemently anti-Trump nut, he's actually, once upon a time, was a really bright guy and a pioneer in election projection. And he would say Nate Silver's model is not a model, it's fraud. That's not how you project. And to some extent, I largely agreed with him. Some of this is like polling, where it's really an art form and you have to kind of know the minutia of things. And the fact of the matter is, Larry Sabato's right when he says that people got to know Ron DeSantis and they didn't like what they saw. Trump is personable, even though he's crass. And he's funny, even though he's rough. DeSantis is awkward. He's an awkward dude. We are hearing this like crazy. He's a weirdo. Is it me, or is he but weird? But people are telling us in the polling. I don't know. I mean, he was so sharp as governor, but this is like, was he always been this aloof? Like this one lady said in Iowa. Yes, he has been. It's just, this is why I told DeSantis supporters, this reliance on the announcement bounce is really stupid for several reasons, but two, myriad reasons, but two really big ones. One is you don't always get a bounce. Not everybody gets an announcement bounce. It has to be a flawless announcement and a greatly produced event, and the candidate has to really put on, and then the media has to really carry water for them. And of course, the media is going to carry water for Ron DeSantis. Fox News is all in for Ron DeSantis, even though they lost more than half of their key demographic and over a third of their audience. They're still going to do this, right? And then there's the second thing, is that when a candidate announces, they begin to get a great deal of scrutiny. And it's not just the media. Voters start to really look at them. Well, DeSantis was making, the Trump camp and his influencers were saying, it's a shadow presidential campaign the Florida governor is running. And it was. For the voters in Florida see it, by the way. They see it. Right, Laura? We were just... This is what I'm talking about. Linda from New Hampshire. Was it Linda? I don't know if people are ever going to see this who are being polled. Probably not. Then the odds are nil. Even though it's amazing, once in a while, I do get a message from somebody or an email saying, "Hey, is this you?" It happens, but this isn't nationally and with a focus on battleground states, which is what we're doing. We're going to oversample battleground states. So as we continue to track, we're going to do what we did in 2016, which is the ability to have what essentially is a sufficient sized sample and we're only going to start with a few, but we're going to expand out as time goes on in the competitive primary and battleground states. We're going to gather these larger samples as time goes on. So I see you, Linda, in New Hampshire, and Linda 2 months ago says she was going to vote for Ron DeSantis now or Kristen Nunu if you got in the race. All right, I want to represent you right, Linda. Now she's Trump 2024 bust. That's it. This is a problem for anyone who's not named Trump getting in this race. I think two things happened. They're going to obviously try to, and I'm going to leave some of this for Eric and Mark, but they're obviously going to try to indict, as I have been saying, Trump on everything. And since Alvin Bragg did this, they would have been wiser to lead with the sedition charge. That's clearly what Merrick Garland tends to do. Julie Kelly is 100% correct. And where have all of these so-called champions been when Julie's been alone, even Matt Brainerd and others trying to defend the J6 prisoners and explaining why if you don't defend them, this is going to expand out to like not only you, but your would-be elected leaders, to include even President Trump. A year and a half ago, people were laughing at that. Julie was right. Always right. They're looking at these numbers like I'm looking at these numbers. And they're figuring, what the hell have I got to lose? I either indict him and make him unelectable among a certain, the independent, persuadable group. And they obviously think that's more likely than the other option, which is making him a martyr. So that's one thing that happened. The second thing that happened, because I think we're leaning towards Martyrville, the second, or at least among Republicans, and then as time goes on, by the way, this idea that he's not electable is ridiculous. He has already been elected. He got the most number of votes of any incumbent president in history. All right, Joe Biden and the Democrats, Joe Biden did nothing. Democrats and labor unions, et cetera, and activist groups just harvest more because nobody, I did. But, people didn't see it coming. Most people didn't see it coming. So, of course, he's electable, and he's electable with all the baggage that he's got. The risk they're running is that they turn him into I know some people are going to go, but it's true. They turn him into a Bibi Netanyahu or Nelson Mandela or, look, I don't want to have to play the clip again, the Mexican president. He got up and actually said, this has happened to me before. Lula. There are instances of people who are politically persecuted, and once the electorate comes to a consensus that it's a political persecution, even though some may be uncomfortable with it, they circle the wagons because they realize what's at stake. What's happening now to some older Republicans is that is dawning on them. And they're leaving, thinking about, let's get deep for a second. They're contemplating leaving this world. And they are just now in their golden years, their formative, the final stages of their life, realizing that I have long believed that this could never happen in the United States of America, but yet now it's happening. And they're considering whether they want to leave a country like this. And that's why, Linda's younger. You're not in those formative years, Linda, and neither are you, Mike. But they're all over the place. So let's get back to that's number two. Let's get back to the overall scheme of things and why this matters. Harry Enton and Larry Sabato make good points. Sabato made the point about people vetting DeSantis. They got to know him. He's weird, but also he flip-flopped. He's awkward. Don't get mad at me. He's an awkward guy. He's not a retail, likable guy. Nobody says that but you influencers. So cut the crap. Stop attacking people. That's not going to work. I just got off the phone with a senior in Florida, right, Laura? In less than an hour ago. And what did he say? I loved Ron, but all they do is attack people. And now, I mean, if it wasn't for Donald Trump, he wouldn't even be the governor. This isn't right. It's just not right. So, I mean, this idea like, oh, well, poor him. Why is Trump, attacking me? That's not working. They're vicious too. You should have listened. You should listen instead of attack, especially when people tell you something 2 weeks before it's going to happen and you're convinced that that you're good. Which brings us to Harry Ent. The 6-week abortion ban was an attempt to win Iowa. I don't really care what anybody says. It was an attempt to have something to say to the Iowa evangelical caucus goers who have been using abortion as a litmus test for 4 decades in the state of Iowa. The Hawkeye state has been about abortion when it comes to the Iowa caucus. That's why conservative insurgents have targeted Iowa, not New Hampshire, hoping to use Iowa as a jump off. So when they lose New Hampshire, they can turn into South Carolina and maybe win the upstate or downstate, excuse me. And, the evangelicals there. But South Carolina has a pretty big moderate population. The problem with this 70% ballpark, 70% conservative number is that he's also winning the moderates. Is he winning them by that much? No. But as Harry Enton's point is, and it's a good point, he's trying to outflank Trump in Trump's lane. Oh my God, that's a tongue twister. He's trying to outflank Trump in Trump's lane, which Trump is dominating. There would have to be, and what I'm saying is it looks too late. Some of this has to be reversed now. Somebody had to I've said this months ago. It's so frustrating that people think they're smarter than they are. And I said this months ago. You're not going to win the working class against Donald Trump, especially not in a Republican primary. No Democrat's going to do it in a general, and no other non-Trump candidate is going to do it in a primary. Not going to happen. That leaves you with some college associate degrees, which right now are heavily for Trump now. The 4-year degrees, which ironically was DeSantis's best group for us in our polling overall. There's a little difference between the phone and online. But postgrads were actually never that bad for Trump, which is weird. Republican postgrads are different than the overall postgrad. Why is that? I don't know. Trump's got some strength in the urban areas that I think people didn't count on. You can't just win the burbs, get your ass kicked in rural America, and then lose urban America and think the burbs are going to give you the primary. It's not going to happen. So you needed those educated people to kind of reduce some of the margin in the rural outposts, obviously in the rural precincts, win the suburbs, even if you don't win them handily. And then frankly, you got to do what like Matt did against Vance in Ohio. You've got to win those urban areas. If Trump comes in and crushes it in Toledo and those kinds of urban areas, nobody has a path anywhere. It doesn't matter if it's Trump plus 10, Trump plus 30, Trump plus 50. The result is going to be the same. And Trump is a secret weapon. I tweeted last night, don't be surprised if the Republican primary is more non-white than it has ever been, at least in modern history. And we can go over some of those numbers, but it is a significant amount of interest among non-white voters that Trump is bringing in. And this is part of plays what makes him stronger, in my opinion, a stronger general election candidate at this point. When you're talking about the Trump or bust a vote, and of course there's overlap here. And I'm going to show you. It dwarfs the size of the vote that people say you got to win back in the burbs. You have to do better in the burbs, without a doubt. But as I showed you in Arizona the other day, the only one who has done better in the burbs in Arizona is, in fact, Donald Trump. Do I have to put this up again? All right. This is the top of the ticket vote share, my census tract by category. As you can clearly see, Trump not only increased the Republican share of the vote in urban Arizona, he arrested the trend briefly in suburban Arizona while squeezing out as much as he possibly could in rural Arizona. Actually beating Mitt Romney in 08's rural, of course. I mean, John McCain, who did pretty good. John McCain is his state, folks. John McCain did better in urban areas, which obviously will give you a bigger boost. That's why I'm saying, listen, bottom line here, folks, personally, I'll trade losing the burbs by a few points if I slice 5 or 6 points out of the urban areas. Without a doubt. I'll lose Washoe County by 3. I don't care. If I win Clark County by 2. Are you kidding me? Of course. Clark County is 70% of the statewide vote. It's not comparable. All right. So also this Trump or bust vote, let me see if it's combined here. I don't think it is combined at the moment. I think this is only what? Phone. This is phone. It looks like it's phone. Yeah. A lot of people, let's talk about this, this concept of, with online, by the way, it's headed to 20. The I would not vote at all Trump vote, it's headed to 20. It is. Right now, it's probably going to end up around 15, but that's up, right? I would consider voting for the other party's nominee with Trump voters only 13.5 points. I would vote for the party's nominee is still 74%, 73.5%. Now, let's look at Ron DeSantis's. If you ask the same of Ron DeSantis voters, he doesn't have, and let me show you actually. This is, again, phone collection from today, but it's very indicative of what, very, very indicative of what we're seeing everywhere. Okay. Here is Ron DeSantis. See, this is people who said they would vote for DeSantis. All right. I would vote for the party's nominee, 76%. Only about 2 points different than Trump's. All right. So in the end, they're going to vote for Donald Trump. I would consider voting for the other party's nominee is huge. 23.2%. I would not vote at all is 1%. Why am I showing you this? Because I would consider voting for the other party's nominee is almost like nothing with Donald Trump. It's less than half of that. I would not vote at all is the problem. So DeSantis's people keep saying, and I see it on Twitter all the time. Again, insulting people doesn't win their vote, folks. And they keep saying, oh, they're cultists. And you know what? In the end, they're voting for Biden. Actually, in truth, DeSantis voters are more likely to vote for the Democrat than not vote at all. Trump's voters will not vote for Biden. They just may not vote. You understand what I'm saying? So for people who keep saying, oh, you put this man before the party, it's a cult of personality. In fact, DeSantis voters, a huge chunk, would vote for Joe Biden. Let me let that sink in. Now, overall, it looks like 23.2%. It's only a couple of votes when you're looking at raw vote, though. So which number is a bigger number? Okay? Meaning, who does more damage? All right? Which party who doesn't want to play nicey nice does more damage? As you can see, the I would not vote at all is 2/3 bigger. It dwarfs the people who will take their bowl and go home, the Mitt Romney voter who would vote for Ron DeSantis, the suburban knight. Some of them are suburban. I mean, honestly, most are educated suburban people. There's almost nobody voting in the rural areas that vote, that would back DeSantis. Almost none of them say they would rather vote for Biden than Trump. This comes from the suburbs. So that part is true. Not much at all comes from the urban area because Trump is winning urban voters. He's winning rural and urban. Actually, right now he's winning everyone. But the suburbs are the best place for DeSantis. All right. So that's a little bit of a wrench in the idea or the insinuation that the Trump or bust voter, like a bunch of traitors who don't care about the good of the country. The difference here is that one is a spiteful vote. I'd rather vote for Biden. The other is, I don't like any of these bastards. I don't trust either party. I don't trust either one of them because my life has degraded. My community has degraded. My family's prospects for the future have degraded, regardless of who is in office. Except from 2017 to 2021. In those, I would not vote at all for Trump. There are people in there who voted for Joe Biden. It's interesting. Really, really interesting. Again, let's see if there's anything. I know I got to take a break here soon. But I mean, when you're talking about race, man, I mean, no other candidate has any non-white support other than Donald Trump. None. Mike Pence actually does better among Hispanics, which doesn't surprise me, than Ron DeSantis does. When you're, this is the phone only. If I looked online, I remember looking at it, and Ron DeSantis was way back with Hispanic primary voters, way back. I think it is possible that non-white voters could make up about 20% of the Republican primary. I know that's a lot. It is a lot. I know it. But I would not at all be surprised. So before I change something here, let me see which one will you be in the, I'm trying to get the primary. In which party primary or caucus for the presidential nomination will you vote next year? Or are you unlikely or ineligible to participate in either? I did this because we're getting closer. And listen, some of these national polls don't seem to understand that not every state is an open primary state. So there are closed primaries where only people who are registered as that party could indeed vote. There are semi, like North Carolina, but then there are straight closed, like Florida, which is, by the way, the only reason why Laura and I ever registered at any point for any party. Only because we wanted to participate in primaries. All right. And Trump is even moving up now in the phone polling. So this is getting really bad for Ron DeSantis. Trump is way ahead in the online collection, which is why? And why what I said before is important about the difference between online and phone, and then the differences between different forms of collection within phone, because phone is older. Why have we been able to pull the magic we were able to pull in 16 and then again in 20? Because the phone is older and too educated. The online collection that we do, which I'm not going to give away proprietary ingredients here to the secret sauce, but it gets at people who just don't want to participate in the phone. They're lower propensity voters, but they do vote in presidential primaries. They do. All right. So, presidential elections, period. And it does look like interest in the primary is really, really high. Again, Laura, this is really bad because the phone is difficult to get. I mean, I haven't grouped it. Did I group it by age? And then I could show you guys. And the phone skews male, which is interesting because, why is it interesting? Because males are less favorable to, and he's winning men, but they're less favorable to Trump than females. Trump's dominance in the Republican primary is coming from, obviously, the working class, women, young people, and non-white primary voters. Now, of course, he's winning white voters too, but that's stunning to me. Stunning. So in the online sample, for instance, 18 to 29, we got about 18%. It's a little bit young, but that's all right. There's no difference. In the phone collection, 18 to 29 coupled together is only 12%. So a lot lower. It's a presidential election. they're going to vote. So older people, what do we got for seniors? Actually combined, we're right on the money, about 22%. 40 to 49 is a dynamite block for Donald Trump. If this is a tricky voting block to get out and vote, especially in primaries, this will be the difference. Like if the elections were tomorrow, that would be the difference between a 5-minute call, I kid you not, and maybe waiting around 45 minutes before you could call a state. All right. Or maybe an hour and a half, something like that. That 40 to 49, especially with some college and below, the 40 to 49 male is the most favorable male demographic for Trump, aside from, I'm talking about actual share of the vote, not margin, because in some of the younger groups, he is getting, a larger margin, but maybe he's in the mid 50s. With the men that are 40 to 49, he's in the 60s. Females between 50 and 64, forget it. It's the men who are seniors that is some opportunity for DeSantis. But again, he's losing that opportunity now. All right. So voting in the Republican primary is as such. And this isn't weighted by region yet or anything. And I'm just looking at some of the demographics. Very interesting. And it's way too educated. I mean, I'm just being honest. It's too educated. Actually, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. Region is an issue, but that some college associate degree, that block alone could be 33%. High school or some GED equivalent is at least 27%. So actually, it's not that bad. It's just region that seems to. And all right, so before I get into that, let's say we're looking at just Republican primary voters raw here. Looks like about 8% African American and upwards of 12% Hispanic, 3% Asian, 2% other race ethnicity outside of 0.8% is American Indian, Alaskan Native, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander is 0.6. This is a non-white electorate, significantly non-white. And you know how I know it's a region is an issue? Ideology. It's a hat. It's a clarion call every time. So, or big red flag, I should say. It's only 52-48 male. That looks about right. But the electorate in the Republican primary is going to be about 70% almost conservative. We have it lower here in the raw. And why is that? Because of geo demographics. It is not going to be that moderate. Maybe it's 5%, 8% liberal, 5 to 8% liberal. And again, Donald Trump is winning liberals. You would think that's the lane. And going back to what Harry Enton said, he's not going after the voters that you would need to go after. Instead, he's trying to outflank Trump in the Trump lane. And that's just not going to work. And you can clearly see it. He's winning moderately to very conservative voters overwhelmingly. He is winning moderate voters, but the margin is less. And he's actually winning liberals too. But there's some weird synergy between a liberal, independent, Republican primary voter and Trump. It's the populist part of it, I think. So I know we got to take a break here. So I'm going to do that. But keep this all under your hat. It's interesting. But the next time somebody says, Trump's fans, Trump supporters are cultists, that's not the truth. The truth is they would rather not vote at all, many of them. But the actual regularly participating Republican primary voter who supports Trump right now would absolutely still vote for most of the Republican nominees. The difference is that he brings in this significant chunk of voters who don't really like Republicans. Yes, they're like the Ross Perot coalition, only less white. And if you're looking at DeSantis's, he doesn't have any new coalition. He has nothing new to bring to the table. There's no addition there. All there is the risk that some of his never Trump support will vote for Joe Biden. Well, that risk is always there. I would argue to you that some of them will tell a pollster now, oh, I'm going with DeSantis in the Republican primary, a Bill Kristol-like Republican, or somebody of that cut and cloth, right? Because Kurt Schlichter came on the show and he explained it very clearly. I will vote for the Republican nominee no matter who. That is one element of DeSantis' support. But this 24% who's saying, I would vote for Biden. Thank God it's only 24% of 15, 16%. I don't know where DeSantis is going to end up. Probably around 18%. I don't know. I don't want to guess. I shouldn't say that. But that is them basically threatening to if they don't get their way, I'm going to take my ball and go home. Republicans have been hearing this since 2016. If you get that new vote, it doesn't matter. If you get that Trump or bust vote, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't. The polling is not 2020. Listening to Andrew McCarthy and all the rest of them, he can't win. Jeffrey Lord destroyed them today, in case you haven't seen this article in the American Spectator. He's the only one to win these states in like 4 decades. To argue he can't do it again is ridiculous. You sound like a Democrat. You do. You sound like a Democrat. So all of your Twitter feeds aren't littered with references to stolen elections after 2020. If I went back and went through them, I'm not going to see that. Of course I am. You're saying that now because that's what you think is your best argument. But the truth is, you'll be missing a huge chunk of vote. The best thing Republicans could do, I think Mark Mitchell and the boys at Rasmussen put it best. If they just, had a kumbaya moment and moved forward and spent hundreds of $millions getting out the vote and harvesting ballots. I'm not going to say anything more specific. I'm not giving them free advice. Yeah, the hell with them. That would be the smart move. Instead, fight because the donors are upset. They don't like Donald Trump. I was actually just talking to somebody, was it yesterday? Friday? Yeah, it was yesterday. And we were talking about a donor, and this one's not even the worst of the worst, but he was just like, I just don't want to not have any impact. And we're like, wait, what? I don't like Trump, but he would be better than Biden. But I'd rather have him somebody because Trump doesn't pick up my phone calls anymore is usually at the end of those statements. Anymore. And I'm thinking to myself, the petrodollar is collapsing. The debt is at a point where our grandchildren will be like the Weimar Republic. They're literally on the cusp of indicting a former president for sedition. If they had their way, they'd take your guns so they could then freely, without resistance, line you up against the wall and put 2 in your dome. And your shallow ass is worried about whether or not the president's going to pick the phone up for you? The government you elect is the government you deserve. Shame on you, and you deserve what comes. Maybe the rest of the country doesn't, but you sure as hell do. Let's get to a break. Seriously, it's unbelievable. Speaking of which, authorities fear extremists are targeting the U.S. power grid. That's according to Time magazine, not Breitbart. And at just 9 key substations go down, knock out power across the country for up to 18 months. Think about it. Our lives, your life would be frozen in time the moment the power went out. That's why you need a generator. The new Patriot Power Generator 2000X is portable, but it's powerful enough for your phones, medical devices, even your refrigerator. And right now, you can go to 4patriots.com and get one for 10% off if you use the code TPP10 at checkout. And of course, this code is for your first purchase only. That's 4patriots.com. Use the code TPP10 to get your Patriot Power Generator today. And got a cool picture from one of you. Somebody else had gotten it for his mom. That's super awesome. But I got a really cool picture from one of you the other day. Good for you. Smart. Even if you have a natural gas generator, it doesn't matter now, does it? Eventually. Some people have, there are different, obviously, different options. That's solar. And the one thing that they got over my Generac is that portability. You could take it with you. That's a big deal. And, if you have something you want to bring out, maybe you have a small little fridge, whatever it may be that you're trying to do, it'll do it. It's incredible. All right. So that to me that makes the difference. Again, one more time before Laura takes it down, 4patriots.com, promo code TPP10. That's 4Patriots, promo code TPP10. All right. Real quick, because I know Mark and Eric are going to come on. Let's talk real quick about, wrong one. Sorry about that. Let's talk real quick about our good friends over at Jam and Bean. Patriots through and through. This is a Patriot-owned company, without a doubt. But they also happen to be magnificent artists when it comes to coffee roasting. Whether you're like me and you love K-Cups because you need it for convenience and time and you just want to get out the door and get to work. And then also there's a part of you who later in the day likes to grind your own beans. Fresh, beautifully ground, yummy smelling beans, which you pulverize, and it's quite satisfying. And then whatever you do, put it in a French press, however you do it. They got something for everybody. Teas as well. And I'm not a huge tea fan, but their teas are fantastic. Laura was right. Thank you for forcing me to try that. She absolutely is right. Tea is better at night. Especially if you get older, they have blends that are like really good. If some of you have got like cholesterol issues, or what's the other thing, Laura? Like a fatty liver or something. One of them is good. It's really good, which a lot of us have, and we don't even know. Right, Laura? What did you give me this for? It was amazing. She was like rattling off all this stuff.
It was a green tea blend.
One of their green tea blends.
Yes.
I think I got it behind. Yeah, it's delicious. Absolutely delicious.
Everybody should drink green tea.
Everybody should drink green tea. And you should do it now with a subscription at jamandbean.com. JAMN bean.com. Right up there on the screen. Thank you, Laura. Right now, they have this amazing deal. I don't know how much longer it's going to last. Use the promo code TPP40 at checkout, and that will get you 40% off the initial cost of a new subscription. Plus, you will still get 10% off of the renewal every month. That's People's Pundit discount, that 10%. Still get it on the renewals. One more time, jamandbean.com, promo code TPP40 at checkout, which will slice 40% off, and you will still get the 10% discount. The popcorn is absolutely over the moon. I love that. Did anybody get the maple syrup yet? Oh my God, Laura, get on that. I keep forgetting. Can you do that right now? Like buy it right now. It's going to be pancake time. We're going to have the kids soon for the break. Oh, we already had break, didn't we? Damn, that was too much fun. It's gone already. Doesn't matter. Sleepovers.
Summer's right around the corner, baby.
Summer's right around the corner. Sleepovers, maple syrup pancakes.
Mm-hmm.
I want that maple syrup. Have you guys looked at it? And they have told us what goes into making this maple syrup because everything is natural with them. And Laura and I were literally, I was, because I know Laura loves maple syrup though. I'm literally salivating. Like I'm feeling the salivation happening. And I'm like, get the damn bottle. So, and I still haven't gotten it. So I can't wait to do it. Looking forward to it. Let's get to some questions. Should we before?
Yes, we absolutely should get through these.
We absolutely should. So
and you can answer them in like 2 minutes per question.
Okay. I absolutely love, and don't forget, guys, sign up to locals. Sign up for locals. I'm going to pop these on screen once in a while. Question for Friday. And give me 1 second. Let me just get a sip. Do I have water? I don't have water. Oh, Lord. All right. Let me get a sip of coffee. That'll have to do for now. Okay. So question for Friday. What percent of the Hispanic vote do Republicans need to target to put them over the top going forward? Florida seems to have hit that and is now safe at 50%. What about Texas, Arizona, and Nevada, etc.? All right. This is the argument that I had been making even going into 2022, which is that Hispanics will not vote Republican naturally. If the party does not move in the MAGA direction, with or without Donald Trump, they will lose their Hispanic vote share. We saw it loud and clear in South Texas. Trump killed it in Starr County. Look at this. You think I'm kidding when I tell you it was a 60-point swing from 16 to 20? I'm not. I am not joking. Trump absolutely knocked it out of the ballpark. New Texas 15, Trump carried it. they lost it. Texas 34 was dead, almost dead even. I mean, it would have been at this point if you continue with the trend. Myra Flores didn't make a dent in Biden's original margin and lost it pretty comfortably. All right. Now, Trump would obviously do much better in it. Hidalgo, Zapata, for crying out loud. Anybody know who that county is named after? Holy crap. It doesn't get any more revolutionary than that. So nationally, C509, the answer is if Trump gets in, 40, or he got, estimates are like, 33, 32, and 16, and then he got upwards of like 38 and 20. If he gets in the 40s, which he very likely, he could touch 40 without a doubt. What is this? Do you want to install? I don't know what that is. Hold on. The hell with that. I'm not installing anything until I review it. Yeah, I think that he could hold Biden's margin down significantly. Do I think he's going to win the Hispanic vote? No. Republicans who were MAGA did fairly well with Hispanics. Laxalt did not do as well as he could have done with them. Lombardo did. I think it's arguable that Lombardo was one of Trump's sheriffs, even though I said that I thought that Lombardo was not as pro-Trump on immigration as he could have been. He still was much more known and liked in Clark County than Laxalt was. Look at how Trump was doing. Trump was actually slightly ahead among Hispanics, and he was ahead in Clark County of Biden against Biden. So that's one state like Nevada. You've got to get in the 40s. You've got to. And then when you're looking at Arizona, look at how Carrie Lake, she actually outperformed Trump in some of these working class Hispanic areas in Gila and some parts of Maricopa that butt up against Pinal County. So she actually did outperform Trump. I'm not sure. Again, it's a gubernatorial election, and I don't think that's something like you hear people like DeSantis say all the time, Trump, he outperformed Trump. It's a gubernatorial election, folks. We all know how that goes. But it's also true that some of the Trumpian candidates like Eli Crane did better among Hispanics than people thought. So that's why Eli was able to, win by somewhat comfortable. Biggs didn't do as well as I thought he might have, but, there's no outreach there. So that's part of it. But South Texas is a red flag, big red flag, and people should immediately realize that that's the difference. Florida is not a great example because they have a bunch of Trumpian Hispanic voting blocks, many of whom were not naturalized or eligible to vote when Trump was up for re-election in 2020. Yet he still swung South Florida 200,000 votes because of this shift with Hispanics that he was able to do in Florida. DeSantis just reaped the rewards of that. And he's a governor. If gubernatorial elections said profound things about subsequent presidential elections, then Mitt Romney would have carried the state of Massachusetts against Barack Obama. He would have had a shot to carry Virginia. We're making this big deal, or we're not. I'm saying people who support whomever the new never Trumper is or anti-Trump candidate, they make a big deal over Glenn Youngkin. Folks, he barely won. Bob McDonnell won by the margin Governor DeSantis won. Florida, in Virginia, in 2009, he carried Fairfax County. Yeah. It doesn't mean if Bob McDonnell was the nominee, he was going to carry Fairfax against Barack Obama. Not going to happen. Chris Christie might have got New Jersey close because he's different. That was a different thing. Before Bridgegate, that's a different phenomenon. Chris Christie did the legwork. He did what he had to do to get into those Hispanic communities so he could win that much of the Hispanic vote. He did what he had to do in Bergen and Essex, Atlantic, and all these other counties with, especially with large shares, even parts of Ocean with large shares of black voters, like in Ocean Grove and Asbury Park. He did what he had to do to win 22% of the black vote. So maybe it would have been a little bit different, but it still does not mean that he would have won. And there's that guy out there, Laura. I got to see if we'll go in the back, Laura. How do I do this? Take a 5-minute break? Anyway,
Really? You didn't think that through?
He didn't answer the message. I'm hoping he just opens it up and goes back there. I'll text him in a second. I'll text his wife and just be like, hey, can you get there? Because for those who don't know what we're talking about, we had more sod, and they oversee this sod that we like. It's a Bermuda hybrid version, which is beautiful. Laura loves it because it's like got finer blades, and especially in the morning, it's got this like beautiful green with a hint of blue.
Reader Digest version. Reader Digest version.
But they overseed it with this crappy rye, this annual rye, so it stays green when the Bermuda goes dormant in cold weather. And I friggin' hate it. And it grows like crazy. And it's obviously, it grows faster than the Bermuda's going to for now, because it's still cooler weather where we are. And I need someone to come with a big old machine and carry away the clippings. I can't do it with my beautiful little reel mower. Love those things. Reader Digest, we're done. All right, Laura. All right, so that's a great question. Nationally, I think if you're looking at like 40 to 44%, then you're riding high. And that's going to obviously be a blowout in Texas. It's going to help Republicans down ticket. Trump always gives more than he ever got to the Republican coalition. He's an addition guy. I mean, he gives. Rob Portman, won so easily because of the new Trump coalition. Pat Toomey survived in Pennsylvania because of the new coalition. Who didn't? Mark Kirk, Kelly Ayotte, who lost by more than Trump lost against Hillary Clinton. In these other states, so like Arizona, I think that in the end is the difference, between the candidates we were polling in 2022, whether it's Arizona and Nevada, even Georgia, which has a growing population of Hispanics, not quite there yet, but Trump was leading among that group. I think that's the difference between Laxalt being up by 2, a tenuous 2, which you could lose if you lose the undecided vote, and he did, very close, and Trump being up by damn near 10. I don't even remember what it was. You guys remember what the Nevada poll was? Like Trump by 10. Why? Because he was almost at 50% in Clark County. That's why. So he can be at 44 in Washoe. That's okay. And Masta was at 51 against Laxalt, who was losing Washoe in our polling. His lead came from doing so well in Clark. He just needed to just add a little bit more with the Hispanic vote share and the working class in Clark. He didn't do it. The 3 points that separated him and Trump from 45 to 48 would have got him there. And he still could have lost Washoe. But because he did not get those Trump voters to come out, he lost. All right, so you did put that one in there. I thought there was one between that one and Urashol's question, Laura. Did you ever determine which states you were going to target initially? That's a great question. Yeah, I did. So definitely New Hampshire, Florida, probably South Carolina, and Iowa. But I may even throw in, it's an expensive state to poll, but I want to throw in California because I'm going to just blow it up. All of the people that Trump helped survive primaries and get elected in 2022 in California are now going to screw him. Tom McClintock's already become public about it. So much for next time Nathan Magzik comes after you, Tom. I don't think you're getting that endorsement again. They are moving California up because they know they're going to lose the early states to Trump. And if they can somehow deliver California for DeSantis with Orange County, it'll be Orange County. San Diego's probably going to go to Trump, frankly, because he's going to get these primary voters nobody's going to see coming. I'm friggin' telling you, man. I'm telling you it's going to happen. So that will leave the northern, more conservative part of the state. Last time, they thought they could do this to Trump last time, too. It didn't work. He won California. But this time, they think they have a better candidate with more money, more well-funded. And, that leaves up the Central Valley, which is filled with a bunch of Trumpian Hispanics. They need them not to vote. And by the way, Kevin McCarthy, who Trump backed, his number 2, his mentee, Jessica Patterson, who wants to take over the RNC. I kid you not. after Rona? That's what you think. There's almost no discernible difference between Jessica Patterson and a Democrat. There really isn't. I'm just being real with you guys. I'm not attacking anybody, simply being real. All right. So I want to target California too because of that, because I know what's going on behind the scenes. Trump is ahead in California right now, but the Berkeley poll had DeSantis ahead after the midterms. And then DeSantis lost that lead. Speaking of which, David Giglio made a great point. Speaking of California, and do I still have that poll up? Yeah, I do. All right. So I know, but it's important, Laura. It's important. There are no short versions here. There really is not, Laura. Sorry. There really is not. So after November 2022, you could see the fall of 2022, DeSantis was actually leading Trump in the state of Tennessee, arguably one of the reddest states in the country. Right? Very Trumpy. It's the Vanderbilt poll. It's not a bad poll, but they have had some really doozy messes. They tend to understate not Republican wins. They tend to understate Trump wins. They did, however, understate what's-her-name's win when the popular former governor was running for Senate. Everyone thought it would be close. It was not close. She crushed him. And Vanderbilt only had her up by a few points, a handful of points. This is a problem for DeSantis that everyone should probably look at right now. When they're thinking about who are these populist white voters, there's definitely part of Appalachia here. And David tweeted, and he's right, latest 2024 poll from Tennessee is eyebrow-raising. Tennessee is absolutely. You're a Southwest Reserve County. This is Trump country. I'm telling you, Sydney, you're it, my friend. Sydney, I am not being hyperbolic when I tell you that it really is up to people like you to save this country from their stupid selves. Tennessee is arguably the deepest red state in the union, and DeSantis is only up 9 against Biden in a head-to-head, while Trump clobbers Biden by 16 points. Does the DeSantis 24 nomination bring some red states back into play? I would worry about a state like Missouri. Potentially even Indiana. For those who don't remember those two states, Barack Obama did pretty damn well in them. Mitt Romney was able to win one, but, he won them both, but one was lost to Barack Obama in 2008. McCain lost it. So there's a real false sense of security out there. Tennessee is getting some urbanized vote share. It's increasing year after year. All right. So with that in mind, I just want to make that a point as we, start to talk about. There's a ton of others. Look, I'm old enough to remember when I tweeted this too. I'm old enough to remember when Britt Hume said how embarrassing it was for Al Gore to lose his own home state of Tennessee to George W. Bush. To George Bush. False sense of security. I have to say this before we bring on our guests and we talk about this more, and we'll ask some more questions. I think Republicans forgot what losers they were until Trump came along. I think Republicans forgot that they are losers. Would a ballot initiative to ban men and women's sport help or hurt 2024 turnout in swing states? Noble, help. For Republicans you're talking about? Absolutely. This is a no-brainer. Rich, will the DeSantis voters go for RFK Jr.? No. Because they're that voter, the one we were talking about before, which is like the Chris Hayes, Bill Kristol voter, they think RFK is a nut job. A vaccine conspiracy theorist. That's not the synergy there. The synergy between RFK is with Trump voters and some older Democrats who feel that they don't really have a party anymore. There's an opportunity to fracture the Democratic Party this year, but Republicans are being too stupid to take advantage of it. In my opinion, Meatball's biggest problem is his total inability to follow through on his legal promises. A big liability, and Meatball is a derogative term for DeSantis. I'm just using it because that's what the commenter used. But yes, J32356, it's a big problem. And again, Larry Sabato brought this up on CNN. He said he doesn't really ever fall through. There are these big promises, and then when you press him on it, he flip-flops and he moves, Have you asked Floridians if DeSantis should resign if he runs? John, I'm so pissed at myself that I didn't ask that question. So mad. So mad. I'm really, really angry with myself. If Rich was advising Trump campaign, would he recommend Trump holding rallies in big cities or spontaneously appear there because of what Democrats did in Chicago in 2020? Yes. That's a member on Locals, NL. I mean, on YouTube. Yes, 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 yes. Trump's secret weapon is an urban non-white vote. Yes, 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 yes. $1 tip. If the election environment is similar to 08, i.e. with the economy and a potential for a major global conflict, what does it look like electorally? I mean, that's when you start to see states like Minnesota really get close. Even Virginia get close. If there's like an economic calamity, it will get close, even if Trump is the nominee. And Virginia doesn't really like Trump. All right. All right. So Laura's saying we'll finish questions later. How is Rasmussen's approval over 50? Jonathan Stein says, I've kind of answered this before, Jonathan. I don't want to like take a crack at anybody's methodology. We could have Mark Mitchell on and talk about it, and we'll ask him to come back and talk about it. But it is certainly methodology, without a doubt, and likely they're very high interest voters. Oh man,
You're killing me, Smalls.
Blondie's killing me. What is your favorite recipe?
Next one.
For beef
Later.
Blondie, I'm out of here. Let's bring on Eric and Mark. That just made my mouth water, Blondie. Damn. Listen, I'm super, super, super excited to have these two guys on with me right now. Eric Hunley, Mark listen, if you don't follow them on unstructured.locals.com, you're missing out. The content is fantastic. They are really, truly one of my favorites. They're bringing Freeform Friday to Freewheelin Friday. Let's bring them on. Gentlemen, how are you?
It's a collision, it seems, for sure.
It is, but speaking of synergy, let's make it mold. Let's make it happen. You know? How you doing, brother?
All right. I'm wondering if Mark has his speakers on because he looks like he's checking his phone.
You're so right, and I just bumped him. Laura, get his attention. There, he's back. All right, cool. Laura's got him. You're back, Mark. You with us, brother? You with us?
No, he doesn't hear us. So
he doesn't hear us.
Plug in your headphones.
No. Right.
Plug in your
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear, brother, but I guess you can't hear us. Listen, while we wait for Mark to come on, and thank you, Laura. While we wait for Mark to come on, Eric, I got to get you. I mean, there's a lot of comments in this and about this, and has been for the better part of a week now. So now that I got you on, and the audience wants to hear, what was your take with your interview with Mike Tracy over RFK? And we'll talk more about RFK. I'm dying to get Mark's opinion on him. But what was your take on what the hell happened during that interview?
I have no idea what happened. It went off the rails so quickly. It just ended up becoming Brooklyn versus Jersey. You know what I mean, Rich? It was just some high school debate at some point. I was trying to let the guy say whatever he wanted. I was just asking basic generic questions, which he apparently, Eric, right, couldn't answer. You know,
no.
I asked him about the war. I asked him about Biden. I asked him about all these different things, and he just started digging his own grave. I don't know what exactly happened there, but he couldn't seem to answer anything. I asked him about the Chinese communist police stations that have been established in Paris and in cities in South America, in Toronto and New York, LA. He said that this was a conspiracy, didn't exist. It was made up a couple of minutes ago. The story goes back to 2016, 2017.
And he blamed the FBI.
Right.
He was contradictory on that, where 1 second he's blaming the FBI and the next second the FBI is good. I got confused. The one that really blew my mind, though, is how he denied an incident with Ann Coulter.
Oh, that was weird.
Which is documented.
Yeah.
But then he wound up
admitting
it later on by saying, "Oh, it was a college thing," in the same interview. And I'm like, "Why are you dying on that hill? Hell, our audience would probably celebrate that you gave her shit." So it's confusing.
Not like your audience likes Ann Coulter a whole lot. I can't imagine they do. I mean, it's just like this is why. I mean, Eric, I'm gonna ask you this, and Mark, after, if you want to respond to this, by all means. But I guess I'll start with Eric. I was a little bit surprised. I got to be honest. I was surprised. There's not that, some of the like Barnes has pointed out that some of what he had said was just laziness, like quoting RFK, tweeting posts about what Obama said or about something about the pandemic. Like all of those tweets were, if you really just read them, he's not advocating for some of this stuff. He was simply saying, so said this. Obama said that. Fauci said we need to do this. He wasn't saying like, and this is a great idea. Like he was quote tweeting headlines of stories that he was sharing. It's not advocacy. It's simply just like, hey, look at this. And so I'm not surprised about that for this reason. I mean, the guy used to like surf the Nate Silver scorecard. He was too lazy to see that we obviously outperformed all of these people that he puts up as like legitimate pollsters. So I mean, if you weren't lazy, you would do your research. And I mean, the record is the record. I mean, there's an expose in the New York Post about it. There's an expose in the Epoch Times about it. They actually hired us to be their pollster in 2020 because of the freaking expose. And he was just too lazy to look that stuff up. But his ideological bent.
Too lazy or paid?
Yeah, paid is what, Viva and I think he might be a paid shill for the DNC, because when you start posting X amount of stuff rapidly, Rich, it's almost like that's your quota. And a lot of us have been in that. I've been involved in that kind of stuff before, where you're hired to do X amount of posts on a particular subject, which may be, hair tonic or toothpaste. You know what I mean? But it seemed, right. Let me just back up a little bit, because when he started attacking RFK about his voice, that's where this thing started.
Yes.
Right. So let me just digress for your audience, because what happened was he attacked RFK on the voice. And I thought, this is really preposterous. Everybody knows about the voice. Why is he attacking on the voice? Is this the tip of the spear where he's going to launch another attack, about RFK and his policies, and just use the voice as an entry point? And indeed, that's what it was. And he got caught doing that, because I said to him, Michael, everyone knows about his voice. That's low-hanging fruit. Are you using the voice to now launch an attack? And he said, no, repeatedly. Moments after the interview was done, he launched his Twitter account again, Twitter attack on RFK, as I had charged him with, which he denied. And that's why I wanted him to come on the show, which he took the bait, came on the show. It wasn't a gotcha kind of interview at all. I simply let him answer these questions. I asked him about the Ukraine war. When do you think it's going to end?
Fair game. What you did was fair game.
I said, when do you think the war is going to end? And he said, never. And I said, how can that be? Because they're losing at men of a ratio of 8 to 9 to 1. And he denied that. I said, that came from the sources of the young man who was arrested up in Massachusetts from the National Guard, who leaked that. And then he denied that. I said, those were Pentagon sources. Then I asked him about the Pentagon Papers with Daniel Ellsberg, and he buried himself as to what a legitimate whistleblower was. The further it went on, the deeper he dug his own political grave. I mean, it was astounding. I didn't have any intent to do any gotcha stuff at all. I just asked him normal questions, Rich.
Well, I mean, then Eric, it begs the question, where do you come down on this then? Because Barnes, I think it's obvious where he comes down. It just doesn't make sense. If you look at some of his reporting, you would think, obviously, that he would, I don't want to say defend, but at least be fair to RFK on some of these issues. They're supposed to be in line. He didn't go for the Russia collusion hoax. Everyone got, not everyone, but most people got duped by the lockdown, at least for the first 2 weeks. And then, some of us, I was against it from the beginning. Why? Historically, it's never happened before. And anytime something never happens before, I'm skeptical. So where are you getting this power from? Where are you getting this logic that this will even work from? If it's all indoor transmission, then how is it a good idea to lock everybody indoors, not let them go out? And the only place they're going to go out is to meet all together in a packed grocery store and touching each other's melons. It was stupid, but there were people, and he was among them, but then he came out of it. So what do you think, Eric? Are you leaning towards this is obviously like a paid thing? It just doesn't make it to me. I can't reconcile it. I thought he would be anti, or at least he would be a voice that recognizes that RFK has a place. If you're still a so-called liberal, he has a place in the party to run, because we're pulling it right now. There are people who just feel like I'm a Democrat. I've always been a Democrat. I don't want to vote for Trump, but where the hell do I belong here? Joe Biden is a corporate Democrat. What's your take, Eric? I'll shut up now.
Well, in fairness, it was an ironic situation because Mark knows Bobby Kennedy, but we've both been very critical that we think his chances are borderline a joke. And why was Tracy coming out like this when I've always had the impression that he was like the Jimmy Dore camp, etc.
Right.
And as
Me
Mark
too.
summed it up, an anti-war guy. I mean, obviously there's a lot of other policies that Barnes has illuminated very well that people can disagree with him on, like, Second Amendment. I think just about everybody here is pro Second Amendment. Bobby Kennedy, not so much, not very good on that.
Well, he might have his reasons.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I would think more arms to fire back. But anyway, whatever. It's very interesting to hear it from Tracy because it was almost like, is this person that we thought was one way is suddenly possessed? Is there something going on? Does he need to be exorcised? What's happening?
Right.
Well, Rich, I try to compare it to the Bernie Bros, and because he kept saying there was a cult around RFK, which, I mean, this thing just started. I don't know if there's a cult. I haven't seen the cult yet, but I mean, he just announced 5 seconds ago. What did he get, like instant cult powder or something? I said this might be like the Bernie Bros, which is what he was, and that just set him off, going, "This is nothing like the Bernie Bros. This is and I go, whoa. I'm just saying, for the hell of it.
Yeah, because the Bernie Bros were, the Bernie movement sold out. We call him Bend Over Bernie over here. That's his name over here. I mean,
don't say Biden, by the way. He hated it. Every time he brought up Biden, he would lash out and say, he has nothing to do with it. You want to talk about Biden? We can talk about. It's like, dude. I don't know.
You weren't allowed to mention the two of them, and it was really weird. You apparently
even though they're
running for the same office, they both have some sort of disability, which was what I was saying. And he's going, "What's Biden's disability?"
That's what I was going to bring up next. That's what I was going to bring up next.
It was just stupid. It was just stupid. He seemed to think that Biden was a complete superhero out of the Marvel comic book chain or something. I really don't understand his take on this. They seem to not acknowledge that Biden has any disabilities whatsoever, Rich.
Biden has fallen upstairs, walking upstairs.
Right.
No less than 3 times,
right.
If 4, if you count that last one. He thought he was running for Senate when he was in South Carolina. How
many times was he the vice president and Harris was the president?
Exactly. And then let's not forget John Fetterman in the state of Pennsylvania. He couldn't talk at all. I mean, literally. So there's also the historical, and Eric, I don't know if you know this, Mark, you probably do. I mean, I know you may both of you do. His father was not good speaking either at first. And
I brought that up.
Yes.
That up.
Yeah. I mean, he was not. He learned over time and became more dynamic. He was nothing like Jackie Boy. Nothing.
No, nothing.
And everyone thought, oh, God, this is going to be a disaster when he first launched his campaign, including his own advisors. I know. I mean, the bicycle fall. I mean, you got to be kidding me. I mean, so
I think
like
Barnes
Democrats
brought it up. Yeah. I mean, I was trying to make the analogy for the past few weeks of LBJ equaling Biden on multiple levels. And that means corruption, also means the presidential spot that they're in now with the primaries coming up, with the challenge from the left. There's so many overlaps between LBJ in 1968, as Barnes and you are probably aware, of his own party coming at him. But again, Tracy wouldn't acknowledge any of these things. It's kind of weird. They just want to, I think, make RFK go away. And I brought up the ABC interview. He said he hadn't heard about it. It was one thing after another.
Hadn't heard about it. You didn't hear about
it was kind of fresh. It
was fresh. It was fresh.
And he did watch it afterwards and then went on a screed immediately saying, it was weird because we had that long interview, and then I guess he watched the ABC interview and then went into a launch of a huge tweet thread just trashing Bobby Kennedy left and right and up and down, and then it turned into a fight with Barnes all weekend. But we found it to be just very odd. It was unexpected.
Well, listen, I'm doing what Barnes said. I'm a registered Democrat here in Los Angeles. I am going to volunteer and work for Bobby Kennedy to help him here in California. I am going to do everything, and that's why I've remained a Democrat, registered Democrat, in the state of California to do something like this that Barnes indicated on your show the other day. He's absolutely correct on how to take this, to help him. Yeah, right, Rich?
Oh
So,
my God. I'm going to show you something right now.
Right. I'm going to do what Barnes said. I'm going to use my Democratic registration to try to help Bobby Kennedy Jr. win the nomination in the state in California in the primary.
As of now, and we're not done yet, but this is the raw data. But as of now, Bobby, we're asking these people, and the point was originally to measure the Trump or bust vote. And this is only the phone. It's not combined online. I think online is worse. No, it's about the same. Online, I'm just looking at the percentages now. When we obviously calibrate all this and weight it'll change slightly. But this is the raw right now of Bobby Kennedy's support. So only 53.7% in the interviews on the phone today said that they would vote for Joe Biden if Bobby Kennedy is not the nominee. I would consider voting for the other party's nominee, which is obviously in their minds Donald Trump, right? And by the way, when we do the head-to-heads, we can look at Bobby Kennedy's support, and in fact, about a third votes for Donald Trump. 34.4% said they would rather vote for Donald Trump.
This is like Bernie in 2016.
It's worse.
Right. Yeah,
it's worse.
It's
worse.
Yeah.
And I would not vote at all is 13%. So you would have to be an idiot not to reach out to these people and try to bring them over, because there's obviously a synergy here, a populist energy, anti-deep state. I mean, I can't believe I'm looking at numbers like this. Bernie was like 12% in Michigan. I think the highest, they said they had voted for Bernie in the primary, but if he's not the nominee, about 16% said they would vote for Donald Trump. That was pretty consistent. And I think he wound up winning about something like 12 to 16 in Michigan. And that gave him Michigan. I mean, 10,000 votes, that gave him Michigan. And these are people who don't have, they're not out of nowhere voters. So Trump lost any ability to cross over to Democrats in 2020. Not like 2016, which he did win quite a few of them. This is looking like 2016 again, where Trump is getting like 12.5% of the Democratic vote. Biden is getting like 7% of the Republican vote. That was the way it was with Hillary. And by the way, when you pit DeSantis or Haley, they are not. They are getting nothing.
Well, the most interesting thing I learned the other day with you and Barnes on that show was the very, very likely to vote for the candidate is his base.
Yeah.
Right? Is that right, Rich? Did I get that right?
Yeah, I mean, or very favorable.
Very favorable. I'm sorry. Very
favorable is absolutely like you're not gonna whittle away more than that, and that's why Trump. It's like the lowest we had him in primary polling nationally in our poll this year, and actually going back to after 2022, it was like after the Republicans were disappointed by the midterms, he fell to 43%. That's as low as he's going. And then now, by the way, he's above like 7. It depends. It's going to be, and I said this earlier, until things are weighted, I don't like making like concrete calls, but it's going to be around like 70% of self-identified conservative primary voters are voting for Donald Trump. And this is now getting the heels dug in here. And I was actually reading some of the interviews with people, because it was not like this 2 months ago, guys. It was, I guess, I'm for Trump, or I'm taking a look at DeSantis 2 months ago. This is the way it was. Now it's like this guy, and in Nutley, New Jersey, Mike, I was talking about before, Mike from Nutley, New Jersey. It's Trump 2024. Now go yourself, like this is not the same feeling than 2 months ago, and Linda from New Hampshire, who was like, I was DeSantis 2 months ago. And now it's Trump, and I'm not changing. Or she was waiting to see what she said. She was waiting to see whether, what's his name? Chris Sununu, like her governor. If he got in the race, maybe she'd consider voting for him. But now, that's it. So yeah, don't you think, or let me ask you guys, Eric, you think, and I know there's probably a lot that went into the firing of Tucker Carlson, but you don't think in the tiniest bit it had something to do with one of his last interviews, the second to last day he was on the air, he had RFK on talking about this soft socialism for the rich, this fascist blend with like vicious capitalism for everyone else, and what he said made a lot of sense. And then next thing, poof,
Well, let me just to piggyback on Barnes for 1 second from the other day. These are the books that Barnes was talking about that we should read. And this
American
is
Values. Yeah.
Right. American Values by RFK Jr. Not to mention the incredible book he wrote on Anthony Fauci, which I recommend to everyone. It is insane the amount of facts he's dug up on Anthony Fauci going back to HIV, the HIV crisis that he was in charge of. I mean, Barnes is correct. I mean, read American Values, read about how his take on the CIA and his family, but going even further back, just because of his environmental stance, which Robert was talking about, is more of a hands-on blue collar environmentalist. Read the book The River Keepers, where he is involved in cleaning up the Hudson River coming out of college up in New York, where
we reported on that at People's Pundit Daily from the Hudson River all the way to Hen Island by Long Island. Right. Yeah, man, this guy was, and it wasn't from this is why I'm just being fair to him. It wasn't from a climate activist point of view. That's
why you should read The River Keepers, even though it's got a foreword by Al Gore for some reason. But
it's just crazy, right?
Yeah. Two activists fight to reclaim our environment as a basic right. This is about physically cleaning up dirty rivers.
Environmentalism, Mark. That's me. I got to be honest. Right. When Trump reinvigorated the Twin Lakes project in Michigan, I was like over the moon. And there were like typical conservatives, like Shapiro-like conservatives. Like, this isn't the role for the federal government. If the role of the federal government is not to protect our environment, I'm not talking about activism. I'm talking about, I'm a Roosevelt kind of environmentalist. I like to fish, freshwater, and saltwater. Right. I don't really hunt anymore, though I do like hunting. It's just that after the Army, it's like, if you don't shoot back at me, I don't really get my willies off, so, it's a little different. But, I understand the love of hunting because I did have it myself. I'm an outdoors guy. I like survivalist, stuff. I'm a nerd like that. Well, not even nerd, but I'm an enthusiast, a survivalist enthusiast. So I get that. We like trees, Laura said, we do. We don't want to hug them. We don't want, in Gainesville, there was like, this ridiculous, that's too much for us. It doesn't matter if the pine is 90 feet and dead. You can't cut down a tree. It's like God worship the tree, and so a hurricane comes, it snaps it like a toothpick and goes through your living room. I mean, we're not that bad, but we are definitely in that camp. And when we
I think Eric and I are going to Florida next week to do some deep sea fishing with Viva. So this might be,
what are you going for? What are you going for?
I'm going for the suntan, but we're going out there with Viva to see what we can catch. I'm going for the creamed herring. If they have creamed herring in that ocean, I'm going to try to catch it.
I'll tell you, you'll be in for a treat. None of you get seasick, right, or anything like that? No, yeah.
I was in the Sea Scouts, Rich, when I was a kid.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, I took the family last year, and I know we kind of missed the season. It's right now, Marlin. The girls got my son got, it was the first time he had ever been on something like that, and Laura was all right. She's used to just being in the bay, but we went out.
I threw up
and tuna, and
you threw up, Laura, didn't you?
I threw up over the side of the boat, and then he said fish on, and I ran to the pole and reeled in the fish.
Yeah, she did.
Went back to throw up after I caught the fish.
Her and my son, because we were rotating, and then some of them were so damn big, you have to switch off. You just got to hand the pole to somebody else. You fight him for 10 minutes, So my son, when he first got sick, we gave him the first one, and it was a wahoo, and it was a big wahoo. And, he's like, chunking, and the captain's like, fish on, and he was like, I'm all right. Chunks, and he's just doing it, and all the guys are like, yeah, that's how it's like. Because look, you can get sick, it's all right, but once the fish is on, you better handle that. I don't get sick. I get a little bit woozy sometimes if it's really bad, but I don't get sick. I look at if I ever do get crazy woozy, You know, the problem people do is they look at the boat rocking back and forth. They look at the walls. They look at the floor. You know, you can't do that. You got to look at the horizon.
You're getting me sick just talking about it, Rich. Can we change the subject a little
Yeah,
bit?
yeah.
I'm going to throw up in my own mouth.
Flashbacks.
I'm just waking up over here in LA. Jesus Christ. All of a sudden, we're talking about vomiting and stuff. Let me just put this book up. It's written by a friend of mine.
I was going to put the other one too.
This one here, just so you know, this is a book written by a friend of mine who's from Ireland, Shane O'Sullivan, called Who Killed Bobby Kennedy. It's not a perfect book, but it goes into a lot of the conspiratorial aspects that Eric and I have been covering about the case. And also Bobby Kennedy and I with attempting to get Sirhan pardoned. That's not in the book, but this is basically about the controversy surrounding the murder of Bobby Kennedy here in Los Angeles in 1968 at the Ambassador Hotel. So those 3 books I highly recommend, Rich.
I actually think I'm going to grab that one.
Yeah, it's probably the best book on the subject. It's only a couple of years old, so he has a lot of recent documents in there.
Yeah, because you know, this, you know, it's not as cut and dry as everyone thinks it is. It's not. And it's a great documentary, actually. Again, for people, and I hate to push them, but
just to interject, he's also got a documentary called "RFK Must Die," based on the book. So
I actually think that's it.
That's also Shane O'Sullivan out of Ireland.
Okay, well there it is. Yeah, yeah, and you know, I was actually fishing through you know, different stuff about him, trying to get, because I'm trying to brush myself up on it because I remember RFK did not take fire immediately, so it just got me going down a rabbit hole of RFK, and I think that's how that happened. There's
well, I think when he lost in Oregon, that was the first primary loss of a Kennedy in their history, if I remember correctly. His primary loss in '68 up in Oregon really shook him up, and his base was not in Oregon, so Oregon or whatever you want to call it up there. But coming back to California, that really
how do they say? How do you guys say it? Oregon? Isn't it Oregon?
I say Oregon. I say Oregon, but I'm not from Oregon. So
how do they say it? Oregon? I
don't know.
Think, right?
I don't know.
Yeah. I always try, but I screw up a lot on how to say these states. Nevada, Missouri. I remember that because I had a convention I had to go to back before, you know, I was still in financials. And, you know, I had to go to this, like, Edward Jones headquarters. And man, I'll tell you, I got corrected real quick, Missouri, you know, and I'll never forget it. So from now, I that just for some reason stuck with me. I was like, it's Missouri, in Missouri, and I'm like, oh, whoa,
you know, Eric and
Nevada.
Eric and I have this. We have this all the time on the show. Who people correct us when there are, in many of these instances, 2 ways to pronounce things, and the people who are locked in one pronunciation of a thing just castigate the other people for mispronouncing it. Yeah. When in American slang and American vernacular and urban speak, there may be multiple ways to say anything, Rich. It doesn't mean one is correct and the other one's not. People are locked into pronunciations like crazy. Like, you're going to die on this hill. Like Eric and I look at each other every week going, this is just crazy. These people like looking for vindication for pronouncing something one way.
That's what it is.
The other way. Yeah.
That's
no
exactly
ice for Mark either.
What's that?
No ice for Mark.
Yeah, we now have the sound effects crazy people, Rich, on the show who are just fanatical about ice or the sound of your chair or movements or
the desk with me.
The desk. It's just crazy. Yeah. I mean, you ever get these people? Or?
Oh, it's the desk with me. It's like, because I hit my hands. So like, and by the way, guys, just so you know, Laura and I are revamping stuff. So like, it'll be a stand up. Well, I can sit too. It goes up and down, but you won't hear it anymore. All right. It'll be on a boom that goes up and over and comes down. All right. So we're working on it. I mean, people go nuts on you, or Eric, like
we've had it.
Something on Twitter, you know, and someone's like, that's you know, an E and not an A, and you're like, okay, you got me, smart guy, you got me, you know.
It happens often. Don't worry, it happens all the time.
It does. So you guys go and do that with Viva. You're gonna do shows when you're there. You're gonna.
Yeah, that's the goal. Yeah,
that's the goal. Yeah. Oh man, that's cool. Good for you. That's really cool. It's tricky. You're gonna do it you're not gonna film anything while fishing, are you?
Well, David, I'm sure will. Okay, have you hung out with David in real life?
No.
Okay,
no.
A camera. A camera's an extension of him. He's always thinking of framing a shot or whatever. When I was in with him with Vegas.
It's smart.
We put a GoPro in the crack of a road to look at the traffic coming at the camera, and we were staging the shot and figuring that up. That's what he does. He's
we
always
gotta hang out.
filming.
We gotta hang out because my son wants to hang out with Dave.
We're gonna do some things down there. We'll be there for a week, so we're gonna do some funny stuff.
Ever since he made the ostrich egg, my dad, he's like, Dad, you know this guy, you know, and it's like long ago. Dave did the ostrich egg with his family, but he just saw it, you know, not recently, but more recent than when it was new. And he's like, you know this guy? We got this guy. He like flies off mountains on like, you know.
But we did. Eric and I did a 4-way with Viva and Barnes in Las Vegas, so we did a live show down there that went very well.
Yeah, Vegas is always fun with Barnes. I bet you had a good time.
We did. We had a great time. Yeah. I've visited Barnes a couple of times in Vegas. We've had some fun.
Always a good. The only time I like to be in Vegas, frankly, because I'm not a gambler. But Barnes
I'm not a gambler either. Yeah.
A good time.
Yeah,
Barnes,
I'm not a gambler either.
One hell of a good time, man. He really is. Yeah, I gotta go and do that actually pretty soon because you know it's coming up. It's like time again, you know. So yeah, basically, I also, guys, I really wanted to go more into this talk.
Did you see our show about Tucker that we did?
Yeah, that's why I wanted to go into this talk.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I wanted to get, because we haven't hit it from the angles like you guys had hit it. It's like there's so much stuff now. They're leaking and they're trying to like declaring war on his personal character. This is going to backfire so spectacularly. It's ridiculous. And if he gets out, and sometimes these contracts are really ironclad, but if he gets out of them, I mean, Fox needed Tucker. Tucker didn't need Fox, but somebody said, and I was listening to your show and I thought about the commenter, somebody said Tucker was like the boomer whisperer, and they just couldn't have Tucker on for 2024. They just couldn't have it because who hurt DeSantis the most? Tucker. He hurt DeSantis asking about Ukraine, asking for a detailed statement. He flopped on it. He had RFK on to basically trash Fox's biggest advertiser. You know, I mean, it's just, I just got to get to it.
Let me frame it another way. Tucker was the last casualty of Dominion. The first casualty was Lou Dobbs. So you've got two bookends of cats who were on the Trump spectrum, the popular spectrum, eliminated at the beginning of Dominion and the end of Dominion.
Barnes and I tried to warn people about Dominion. We tried.
But I'm saying Dominion might have been, some sort of, Trojan horse in a way that these were the demands of Dominion, having nothing to do with voting machines, Rich. To get rid of
said that on Tucker, and I was like, when I went on Tucker's show, I was like, this is nothing to do with voting machines. This is about dirty rolls and loosening verification procedures for signature verification, and, I just wanted later, I think it was just a couple of days later after I went on the show, he actually called Sidney Powell a liar, and he basically banned her from Fox News. So it's like, to me, I almost feel like they want to use that as an excuse.
Right.
They're throwing it. No. They're throwing it all out there.
They're throwing everything now.
And some of it's funny though, because one of the clips I covered as a short on Layback News was them talking about Tucker saying Fox Nation sucks. Well, half the people are probably celebrating, going, "Yeah, it really does suck. That's so cool that he knows that it sucks and he's looking out for us." So I'm just thinking, maybe they should really follow up on what they're releasing, because half of the time people are laughing about it. And it shows, I think, they're completely disengaged with his audience and with the general audience. They think, oh, we'll get him. And the second point is that his contract is like $1.2 million a month. That seems like a lot of money to us, but to Soros, that's a rounding error to keep him on the bench.
Damn,
well worth it.
Yeah, I said it was about 10 million a year. It might be 12 million a year, but in the show that we talk about with Eric from the past couple of days, we went into the background of Tucker's family, and Dick Carlson and the amount of
by all means do that.
The massive amount of money that's in the Tucker family from both mothers, the birth mother and the stepmother. The birth mother, the family goes back multiple generations, where his great grandfather was the king of cattle in California, owning more cattle. Well, that was later with the second mother, but the first mother The family goes back multiple generations in California, where the great grandfather was the largest land and cattle owner in the United States, going back 4 states of cattle, going over 4 states, millions and millions of dollars. In fact, when the birth mother died in 2011, there was a battle. There was no will, and Tucker and his brother, 2019, finally settled the will and retained the oil and natural gas rights that his mother owned in Northern California. And the stepmother is the heir to the Swanson fortune and the niece of William Fulbright, the senator. So the Swanson second mother may be worth even more than the first mother, Rich, in terms of just sheer wealth in the Carlson family. None of this from the father. The father is just a whole separate episode that we did on America's Untold Stories. But the 2 mothers, absolutely the deepest pockets in the United States.
And you I saw you tweet, a little, I don't know, from a yearbook or something, Tucker's picture at this very obviously elite school. Isn't that amazing how he ends up being the voice of the I don't even want to say populist right, because he really wasn't. It was more, if you're being honest, it's like the populist middle, where it really is. Because
we covered him because for a long period of time he mocked, just like Ben Shapiro does, any conspiracy regarding the JFK assassination. And all of a sudden, out of left field, he turned 180 degrees, as Eric and I reported, to say that the CIA killed JFK. And the twist to the story was he wouldn't reveal his source, only to say that it was someone very, very close to him. And I immediately thought of his father as his source, which I believe it was.Is father, of course.
You think it was his dad?
His father ran Voice of America. His dad ran USAID, which is a CIA front. His dad ran the radio program out of Miami, which is Radio Marti, which was a propaganda radio broadcast into Cuba. His father was involved in all the CIA operations against Castro, and then also became involved in Voice of America in the 80s under Reagan. So his father has a lot of CIA involvement, a lot of propaganda involvement. So if anybody knows where the bodies are buried, it's Dick Carlson, his dad.
He would know. Yeah. Or maybe somebody close to his dad,
I'm saying, it's somebody, he had a smile on his face, like this was someone very,
but ultimately
very
you believe
close.
him, Mark, right? I mean, ultimately you believe him. The source.
Mostly.
Mostly. Go ahead. Explain that, Eric. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, people want to say the mafia did it. Well, Jack Rubenstein was paid by the mafia, but the mafia didn't do it. People want to say the CIA did it. Well, CIA was definitely involved, and there was some chicanery, but the CIA didn't specifically do it. There was multiple people involved, but I'm going to defer to Mark. He's obviously the expert on this. I don't think we're saying specifically like mafia or specifically CIA.
The CIA seems to be a shorthand, for a lot of this stuff. When people say the CIA, it's kind of shorthand for not that it's wrong. It's just that there are numerous intelligence organizations, and one of the ones they always gloss over or don't know that exists is the oldest intelligence organization in the United States. That's ONI, Office of Naval Intelligence, which part Lee Harvey Oswald was ONI. He wasn't a CIA operative. He was an ONI operative. He was an ex-Marine, and that involved ONI through the Navy, which, as I said, goes back to the 1890s as an intelligence organization. A lot of people just simply say CIA. There's NSA, there's all these different organizations. CIA is kind of a shorthand now for intelligence organizations, Rich, is all I'm putting out there.
In truth, even after we did the polling on it, and I went on your show, Freeform Friday, which pitch before you go, you made a really good point, which is really we should be saying government entity, government agency, something like such as the CIA, or to include the CIA, something like that. We should say,
Deep State works.
Deep State works. They had a file. Look, the CIA had a file on Lee Harvey Oswald. That's fine. It doesn't mean he was working for the CIA. He was also doing side work for the FBI in Dallas. He was doing stuff for them as a paid informer for the FBI, and whether it was Ray Epps kind of work or whatever he was doing, the FBI had a file on him. But I think at the end of the day, He was involved in a phony defector program to go behind the Iron Curtain, which involved 13 phony defectors. And he was given the Soviet Union defectors. Some went to Bulgaria, some went to Albania. He ended up in Minsk in Russia, and that was his assignment. So he brought back human intelligence from Minsk, how the department stores worked, how the TV worked, how the trains worked, because we had nothing else but human intelligence, as a form of gaining intelligence. There was no satellite intelligence. There was none of this PRISM programs. It had to be boots on the ground, Rich, which people don't understand. We had to literally get people onto the ground to see how the phones worked. How does the department store work? How do the trains work? That's what Lee Harvey Oswald did in Minsk. That's what's in his diary. If you read
I've had somebody on who actually was the opposite end of that. So it's a fascinating angle. But Jack Barsky I've had on, he was a mole for 16 years. And he talked about how they were doing the same struggle, trying to find out how life was here. They couldn't do it that easily in the Soviet Union, though. So they actually imported people to the Soviet Union, created like fake towns and fake culture and things like that to do the same basic thing. So I just want to point out that it's interesting that both sides were doing that.
Yeah, you had to. Right. Eric is right, because there was nothing else, Rich. You had to literally
Amazing. The lengths still go. Amazing.
You had to get physical people. Marina Oswald comes back with Lee Harvey Oswald here. She begins to mail stuff back to the Soviet Union. She begins to mail back Scientific American, magazines that they don't have that had incredible stories in them about how things were being built here. Life magazine, Time magazine, Intellectual magazine. She's mailing these back to the KGB in Russia from Dallas and from Fort Worth as his wife. So, I mean, both sides were doing it. And, a lot of times when they came here, they were like honey traps where they would marry someone. Then the woman.
I saw that post too.
What's that?
I saw that post too. Your post. Rupert Murdoch's what?
Well, there's quite a few of these honey traps going on right now. If you look at some of the women who are married to these men of power, Eric and I have discussed this about doing a show about it. Honey trap. Yeah, a series of them of honey traps. Look at the wives. Look where they come from. Look at the background of the wives. There are so many honey traps. This is not a new thing. This goes back to Roman times. I mean, this is an intelligence method that is as old as Roman and secret police, going all the way back. The fact that his Asian or Chinese wife that Rupert Murdoch has, now the story is that she wanted Tucker fired. That Murdoch was on the phone with Zelensky because of her.
Wait, didn't Murdoch have a wife? No.
We don't have to tell them, we don't have to say her name, Laura, but the lengths people will go, and that being one of the oldest tactics in the world, the lengths people will go are unbelievable. I remember in 2016 having the tracking poll, and we used to get a lot of pressure, why are you the only one? That doesn't show this is a blowout, and anyway, it was October. I mean, it was coming to a close, and I saw somebody I went to high school with and tried to pull some crap. And then later, I didn't fall for it, obviously, but later, come to find out,
I left.
I don't say her name. Don't say her name. Because I'm going to be, but come to find out, she's like Clinton Foundation.
Right.
And then worked for Clinton. Obviously they were trying to get me in a compromising situation.
Right. Rich, look at Fang With Swalwell. Look at Anthony Weiner's wife out of New York. I mean, Abedin. I mean, this goes on and on and on.
Elliot Spitzer. I knew her.
Spitzer,
I knew her from Wall Township, actually. That's not her real name. But yeah, I couldn't believe it when that story broke. I'm looking at that magazine. I'm like, flipping through it. I'm like, wait a minute. It was like my friend Dylan's girlfriend. It was like her friend. And I'm like, oh my God, Elliot Spitzer. Holy crap. What a small world. So what do you think the future is for Fox News, gentlemen? I mean, you got to make money. You got to have viewers. The key demo that advertisers are looking at, it lost half of them.
I don't know. I mean, it seems like this is some deep state potential suicide. Not a suicide. Well, I shouldn't say that word. It's like a deep state attempt to give up some power for a longer game. In other words, they knew they were going to take this massive hit by doing this. And they knew that they were going to lose the numbers. I mean, Murdoch's not foolish, but Lachlan,
not an idiot. Yeah.
Lachlan is the leftist of the two brothers, Rich. I mean, the other brother is more conservative. The son that's on the left likes to party with models on Sunset. So it's hard to pick up a girl on Sunset Boulevard who's a model if you tell them your father's Rupert Murdoch from Fox. That doesn't cut it here in Hollywood. So he,
I don't know. It depends on how you look at it, though, because like Canada was going to remove from how much of Fox's money is dependent on cable access fees,
right,
versus how much is actually advertisers. I mean, if it was advertiser driven, well, CNN is surviving just fine with no watchers whatsoever because of cable access fees. Well, keep in mind, and we haven't talked about it, but Canada literally was pulling Fox off the air because of Tucker Carlson. That could be another motive. This is just barely coming out now for them to fire. Plus, a lot of his ads, he was having problems getting ads beyond the MyPillow guy.
Oh, yeah. There was a boycott on the ads for a number of years. The point of the matter is, this may be glorified NGOs, these operations, because look what happened. Look what happened with Twitter. He laid off 80% of the people, Musk. The thing is operating fine. He said it was operating like some NGO. These are not profit-making entities. They're phony capitalist corporations.
That's
and
right.
And I'll make the analogy even further. I'll make the analogy even further to the Hollywood movie studios. They put out films that lose money left and right. These are complete leftist-themed films. They take a bloodbath in terms of the finances, and they continue on. These are public corporations that issue product that nobody wants to see. But they're put out there every year, every month. These films are doing the same thing that CNN is doing, that Eric mentioned, and that Musk mentioned is what Twitter was.
We already know, Mark, we already know this exists in the media entertainment industry.
Right.
Here it is. From the entertainment side of it. This is a perfect example right here on the media side of it. This guy bled $6 million every year. He was in the red every single year. Nobody wanted him to make money. He wasn't there to make money. He was there to tell people Hillary Clinton has a 98% chance of winning the presidency. I mean,
is this a phony way to also control the media? To just put up these people when there's no incentive to make money, and you're putting out these shills. These are all shills. But now we have product that's a shill. We have films that are products that are shills. I mean, there's different things going on here that are so deep and so many multiple levels. I mean, CNN is going to have a town hall with Donald Trump next week. This is going to be fascinating. This is up in New Hampshire with New Hampshire voters, with a former Daily Caller host.
Who took money from DeSantis.
I didn't know that. That's even more.
They took a small fortune from DeSantis. Apparently.
Will there be a time delay? I'm curious because are they going to cut things out? Is it going to be?
I don't know. It's supposedly a live town hall. I mean, this is going to be very entertaining.
Happy
what
day.
If he says J6? I have a feeling that they're going to put something in there.
He's good in these forums. In 2015,
he's very good in these forums.
They tried to get him with these town halls, and at the end of the day, where they can get him is in like a moderated presidential debate format is when they have a better chance to get him.
When we were covering the Dick Carlson story, one of the aspects of the story was he was on 60 Minutes, and they were doing a segment about him. He was running a bank in San Diego at the time, an SNL bank, Savings and Loan Bank, and they were attacking him for not giving out loans to minorities. He brought his own secret film crew to film Mike Wallace on the breaks, and Mike Wallace made all kinds of racist statements on the breaks, and Dick Carlson had that on film. Trump learned from Dick Carlson. Trump has filmed this stuff on the breaks before, right, Eric? I remember a couple of times when Trump was on with Leslie Stahl, remember? And he filmed it himself to make sure they didn't do what Eric. Yeah. And well, also that they were lying, and they edited it. And that came from Dick Carlson, from Tucker's father.
Yeah, that's I always think about the difference between Mike Wallace and his son. I mean, they're just two totally different I know culture changes, but it's more than culture. It really is.
Tucker had a problem with Chris Wallace, and his father had a problem with his father, Mike Wallace.
Yeah, it's long standing. I mean, that's funny stuff. And really think about it. I mean, it's generational feud here. It's almost like a media vendetta, or just short of one. So I mean, the bottom line is, I think you nailed it. I think that ultimately we're getting to a place here. These are not real corporations.
These are not real corporations. That's what I'm trying to say. These are NGOs. They're glorified. Right. They're state-sponsored NGOs, which is a very Soviet-themed method of operating in the media.
This is exactly. There's no difference than what you even still see to this day in North Korea.
Exactly. We have a guest. We have a guest today, Eric and I, later in the afternoon, named Jose Vega.
We're going to tell you when we wrap up.
Jose Vega was dragged out of a seminar that had the editors of the Washington Post and the New York Times, and he had a microphone. He was demanding that they speak on censorship in the media and the Ukrainian war, and they physically dragged him out of the room. A video that went viral, Rich, as you know.
You're going to have him on today.
Yeah, this afternoon. Yeah, he's on FreeForm Friday, and he also was the one who protested AOC, where AOC had a tantrum and a complete meltdown.
Clapping, Laura's clapping in the other room frantically. That's going to be great. We'll have to check that out.
Right.
Look forward to it. I hope he rips AOC apart.
You can go and look it up and see what he did. So basically, let me get you to answer before we go on and close it out here. Let me get you to answer Anthony. This one's for Mark. Or Mark's gone. Okay, so we'll have to wait on that. You know what? In the meantime,
the CIA grabbed Mark.
The CIA just took Mark out. He's laughing. I can see it. Wait for him to get back to answer that. In the meantime, there is only one Democratic gubernatorial candidate in 2024 that you have to look. Mark Robinson has to look out for. He's the Attorney General and has been, in that role for a while. I believe the Attorney General. He's been campaigning for governor for like 4 years. So he will be Mark Robinson's competition. I just don't know why anyone, and I hate to make this about race, but I don't know why anyone who's white would run against Mark Robinson. If that's
who's Mark Robinson?
He's Lieutenant Governor of North Carolina. He's a Republican because you elect them separately here. Yeah, so you elect them separately. So Roy Cooper's a Democrat who's the governor because Forrest couldn't beat him. He's just a little bit shy. And again, that's a great example of Republicans botching stuff. Great guy, but because he's not like the Ricketts kind of guy, they didn't help him all that much, and he still almost won.
To answer the guy's question,
can you see it?
There will be. I see that. Yeah, I see it will be satellite offices, I presume, opening up. Around California when the primary season begins. And that's how you can volunteer to help him in that regard. I'm going to volunteer to help him through media or whatever I can do, and just be a volunteer for his campaign. And others can donate money. He's got a pretty strong operation already going in terms of fundraising, Rich. RFK
amazing.
Jr.
Honestly, from what I'm hearing, it's amazing considering the lengths the White House is going to box him out to the point where even some people in his own family and the surrounding circle just don't want to.
Well, it's the same two sisters, right, Eric? It's Rory and the other.
That's what we meant with Breitbart, right? I mean, that's what he's talking about.
No, but these same two sisters are the ones that opposed the pardon of Sirhan, claiming when Sirhan got out. I was involved in the parole hearing, and we got Sirhan pardoned, Robert Kennedy Jr. and I. It was later kiboshed by Newsom because of these two sisters and Newsom's supposed love of RFK. It was really a bizarre situation because he overrode his own parole board recommending for the parole of Sirhan, of which we both, Robert Kennedy and I, attended to get him out of there. And last summer, the summer before this one. Anyway, so the two sisters, Rory and the other one, I think it's Kathleen, or I forget what the other one was.
Oh, Catherine, the druggie. Cuomo's ex.
Yeah, Cuomo's ex. Both said that Sirhan, if he gets out, he can Uber to Malibu and kill them. This is what they publicly stated. So these are the people, the two sisters. Caroline's JFK's daughter.
I get confused.
Right. But Rory, who I believe was in her mother's stomach during the time of the assassination, her mother was pregnant. Ethel Kennedy was pregnant with Rory at the time. She's the final kid. RFK Jr. being the second oldest son of RFK. But the sisters said that, Sirhan could possibly Uber to Malibu and kill them. I had to laugh at that one.
That's
why they were opposed to the parole
ridiculous.
of him. No, but they were for the parole and emptying the prisons, as was Newsom in California, releasing over 58,000 violent felons.
Only hardcore, Mark.
Only hardcore felons that were released. But the Kennedy family is opposed to the release of one person, not the 58,000 violent felons who can't penetrate their gated community in Malibu, but the rest of us have to live with on the streets of LA.
And how old is Sirhan and how tall again?
Well, I think he's
how old is he now, though, Eric? Really? I mean, how old is this guy now?
72, 73, and like 5'4".
Is this it for him? Honestly, was that it for him? Is that his last? I mean,
well, unless there's a change in California, he still applied for another parole hearing last month, so it hasn't stopped. The reality of it is Newsom's going to block every one of these things because now Newsom's involved in presidential politics. So he doesn't want that on his watch, I think.
Y'all know what Newsom's doing. It was an article in Politico the other day, and basically it's like you read between the lines, and what he's really saying is, I can wait. It doesn't have to be now, but man, I hope something happens to him. It's like because Harris is, for people who don't know, they've attempted to rehabilitate Kamala Harris's image just in case something happens, and it's just not working. It's just not work, and of course, it's not going to work. You can't.
Rich, when you get a chance, have a look at women, Black Democrats, most likely voters, their support of Kamala Harris.
Yeah,
when you get a chance, look at that number because I believe it's in the high 80s.
Yeah, I'll have to. Yeah, we didn't pull that. I'd have to go back.
I know, and that's the base of the Democratic Party, bro.
But men, by the way,
men,
African Americans can't stand it.
Right. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about Black women, most likely Democratic voters. Look at that number and tell me what it is, because I think you're going to be surprised.
It's probably ridiculous. Yeah, no, I won't be. I mean, honestly, what we didn't see coming in 2020, I mean, we could see that Trump was doing better with Black men, but he actually wound up doing better with Black women, which was by about the same amount, even though Black men were more, like overall. But I did not really see that. What if you're younger, then there's like a lesser attachment to the Democratic Party, less loyalty to the Democratic Party. So now I look back at some of the surveys, and I guess at least a hint of it was there. There would be like an 18 to 24-year-old African-American female who would say, I'm voting for Trump. And I was like, yeah, okay. And I just didn't even think about, but in truth, it came from the younger vote. It did not come from, if you're 45 and above, it's like a heritage thing. You're stuck, that's, and just so people know, because I see the comment, what Mark was talking about was Anthony's question about what can be done, what can Californians do to help RFK, because he's in the northern parties in wine country. And that's why Mark said that I'm sure there'll be satellite offices.
Right. There'll be satellite offices opened up. Right. And you can volunteer to go into one of those satellite offices. And I think Barnes is right again, that RFK Jr. is never going to run as an independent or as a third-party candidate. I think Robert is absolutely correct on that.
And I think that would hurt, actually, Trump. I'm telling you.
Yes, that's what made me nervous initially about the situation. That's what made me nervous. But apparently, what I believe is going to be the most fantastic event is RFK, the attempt to block him physically from attending the DNC in Chicago. At the convention, they're going to physically try to keep him out without credentials. And some people who are going to have credentials are going to pass them on to RFK Jr., who will use, this is my prediction, who will use those credentials to come onto the DNC floor. This is going to be fun, people.
1968 part 2.
Like in 1968.
1968 all over again.
Right. And they are going to try to cock block him into keeping him out. And he, if he's smart, will accept credentials from a supporters who will have credentials and allow him to enter the floor and to demand a speaking platform at the convention in Chicago this summer of the Democratic National Committee.
The 16 convention had the potential to turn into something like a 68. They did keep a lot of Bernie people out, but ultimately, like I said, we call him Bend Over Bernie for a reason. Bernie bent over. We showed the picture of him coming off the stage. I got the greatest shot of Bernie coming off the stage after he endorsed Hillary Clinton. And he's like, guys, he's walking off, his shoulders are low, and he's like, you know, I mean, it's like, he's like, I can't believe I just sold out. I got the greatest picture. I just showed it the other day.
Well, you know, with the Michael Tracy interview, I made the analogy that Bernie Sanders, when he first started, there were people saying, I can't vote for this guy because of his heavy duty Brooklyn Jewish accent.
Yep.
And Tracy just, and I'm not making this up. People are just saying, I can't listen to this guy.
Yeah,
it's like listening to a guy working in a delicatessen in Sheepshead Bay. And he wouldn't have it. he wouldn't have it, Tracy.
Because I know somebody like that.
You know who I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
He wouldn't have it. He thought there was no analogy to be made there. And I said, these are different regional accents, and people have different styles of speaking. I said, look at Fetterman. I mean, how do you listen to that guy all day long and then listen to Joe Biden, talking complete salad, and listen to Harris? I don't know what she's saying.
What if you have them talk together? Will it be a cohesive thought if you put Biden and Fetterman together? It's like interjected between.
Well, oddly enough, they're never seen together, so you have to start to make some sort of question as to, are they the same person? Nobody's ever seen them in the same room. I mean, think about it, folks.
That's a funny concept. So like they both skip words in sentences. So like if you had them say the same sentence and then overlap them, would it make a coherent sentence? That's hilarious.
I just want to get to, if we could just get to the writer's strike here in Hollywood and New York, is for your viewers at home. You will now not be able to see Stephen Colbert live, nor Jimmy Kimmel live, nor any of these Seth Meyers live. It's one of the darkest days in American entertainment history. But they're just running reruns now of these shows, which is what happens during the writer's strike. During the last writer's strike, what evolved out of the last writer's strike was reality TV, because it was unscripted, Rich. So we're going to see what comes out of this writer's strike.
God.
Yeah, that's where reality TV came from. But I believe that these AI chatbots may begin to write scripts while the strike goes on.
Listen, I'm serious about this. I'm not trying to. I mean, it's funny you say that. That's what I was going to ask you, because listen, to me, and I want to know what you think about this. To me, I'm watching all these recreations of like Western, and they're regendering, Eric. They'll either completely rewrite something in the mold of like a new progressive cause. I mean, part of this, Mark, I know a lot of it is agenda, but you know the world. Are these people just out of ideas? Is it that
no? See, they're blocked like the rest of the political world. They're blocked by their political agendas within the creation of art. The creation of art has to be a free thought, free ideas. They can't let that happen. Whatever comes in has to have the intersectionality. It's got to have the wokeness. And that is they're stabbing themselves in the heart artistically. They can't allow stories that I have presented on America's Untold Stories to become movies, because there's parts of those stories that don't fit their agenda. And so they create stories that are now intersectional, crazy woke stories that don't hold up to the regular 3-act structure of a drama, Rich.
Yeah. So
you know what I mean?
I mean, you think that's why it's just comes out as less quality, like lower quality, because it's not it's.
I think it's Spike. Spike Lee is the answer to that. That's all I have to say, because he's incapable of making a movie without driving some obnoxious message home.
Right. I mean, some of them are more subtle than others, but it's almost impossible to make a film and a political message at the same time. It's really, really difficult.
My question though, Mark, is if they hate us so much, if they hate like traditional Western civilization so much, I mean, that's what it comes down to, then why do you keep stealing the humanities and trying to rewrite them? Don't you have your own damn idea? Can't you come up with your own epoch, your own epic love story?
No, they're not telling
Romeo and Juliet.
They really can't.
Eric, what do you I mean, are they doing this part of this on purpose, Eric, to retell a story?
Well, they've tried it. They tried it. Guess what? Nobody buys it, so they'll steal working characters. It's like, okay,
well, that goes back to the
Spider-Man. So we're going to change his race, and then so now he's our Spider-Man. We're just going to read.
Well, let's take a look. Take a look at Batgirl. Batgirl had a huge budget from Warner Brothers, and finally, they screened it. Of course, it tested terribly. Testing is the system where they go out into the San Fernando Valley here to theaters, and people are given scorecards and they rate films. Okay, so that's a long history of doing that. And Batgirl tested so badly that someone finally got through in the accounting department of Warner Brothers. Just so people know, that the P&A on a film, the prints and advertising on a film, is usually has to be double the cost of the film. So if a film is $100 million, the P&A has to be $200 million. That's prints and advertising. Crap. That's right. It's an enormous investment. So if you have learned previously that film has tested badly, you are not going theoretically to invest double the amount of money to market a film that tested so badly. But somebody in the accounting department of Warner Brothers got through to the woke people who were running it and said, you got to pull this film. And this is a major, major film that cost hundreds of millions of dollars that Warner Brothers pulled from release. It's one of the first times this has happened in major studio history, where a film at this level has been pulled. So somebody's getting through to these people about money loss.
It bombed that badly. I mean,
no, it would have bombed that badly. They would have.
It tested that poorly.
It tested poorly, but what has been happening is these films have tested poorly and they've been releasing them. Which I think is some sort of fraud, some sort of stock fraud, because the shareholders. Yeah, what about? Yeah, these are public companies. The shareholders should be able to drill down and say, you saw the testing on this film was in the low tens.
Fiduciary responsibility.
Right. And you release these films anyway. They're releasing the films anyway because of the political content is what I'm getting at.
Incredible. Well, what do you guys tell the audience as we wrap it up here? What you got going on tonight? Again, recap it for them, and generally, where they can go to follow along.
Well,
we'll do it again.
5:30 p.m. We're doing Freeform Friday. America's Untold Stories is broken into essentially two parts. We do a well-researched live stream documentary every Tuesday, if you will, and then Freeform Friday, which is where we riff. There might be a guest, there might not. Everybody talks over each other because it's freeform. I mean, it's literally like a bunch of Marines in the mess hall with one plate of food. Everybody's diving in to grab whatever they can. That's sort of the format. We're on essentially YouTube, Rumble. If you are on locals, we do stream to all three platforms, depending on your level of, strife within the chat. Locals is the friendliest chat, obviously, because it's a private chat. Right. And then Rumble and YouTube, a bit of a few for all, and YouTube, especially now, because sadly, in the memory, our moderator, Secret McSquirrel, passed away last week. So until we figure it out, that it's a little bit more raucous.
Really?
Yeah, she did. So it's very sad.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
Right,
we will have you on our show next, Rich. You'll come back with hopefully with your wife and visit us. We can go back and forth. This could be a regular thing. This could be a regular thing.
Let's do it. I'm totally up for it. Let's do it. Absolutely.
Right. We could talk about UFOs. We could talk about handguns. We could talk about whatever comes across on a Freeform Friday.
I saw on Prime the other day, I rented another version of, because it was like a show, part of a show, but it was older, so they archived it, and I had to pay like $3 for it. But I saw yet another version, some other show that did the Travis Walton story with like all the guys who are still surviving. John died recently, so that's he'll never be able to do that again. But it's just amazing how this man's story never changes. I mean, I've heard him tell it to many different shows, documentary people, live, and it's incredible to me how consistent this man's story. And then plus, I'm also a numbers guy. You know what the odds are for 6 different individuals to beat a polygraph 3 different times or 2 different times? You have any idea the odds of that? It's just no way. Just no way. And the polygraph examiners would have to have been in on it. And the first one, Cy, he had absolutely no motive. I mean, he was one of the top polygraph examiner in Arizona and one of in the West. The CIA used this guy. So, I mean, I just don't see any motive for Cy to fudge those results whatsoever. The one guy who initially bombed it, which was what I was looking at on the show, later he bombed it because he had a criminal record. And he was afraid.
Well, don't give it away. I want to see the show.
Yeah. I won't give it totally away.
Don't give it away.
You know,
but
for people, some people probably know that originally one of the guys did get an inconclusive result back when it first happened. And there's a reason for that, which I learned a little bit more about. And then he comes back later, does it again.
Well, there's a 4-part. There's 2 things I'll recommend for you, Rich. There's a 4-part series on the Phil Spector murder on Showtime. That's fascinating about his career, creating the wall of sound and girl groups, and then also the murder of Lana Clarkson and the trial here in LA. 4-part, absolutely wonderful. On Showtime, and there's also The Lady and the Dale, which is the story of Tucker Carlson's father and the invention of the Dale 3-wheeled car by the lady. And that's The Lady and the Dale 4-part series on HBO. I think it came out last year, so I'm recommending both of those to you and your wife. I think you'll flip out. They're both great to watch, both 4 parts.
Super cool. I just typed it in the chat so I could remember it. But yeah, guys, let's do it. Let's talk more about this. Hopping back and forth, I'm up for it. It's always a good time to come on with you guys on FreeForm Friday. Is a lot of fun, so I'm up for it. I'll let you guys go. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate you guys coming on today. It's Freewheelin Friday. It's a little different.
Same idea. Same idea.
Only with a Q&A. I got to most of them. But I'll let you guys wrap, and I'll be watching tonight because that sounds like you got a really cool thing going tonight. I can't wait to check it out.
Thanks,
all the best, guys. I really appreciate it. Unstructured.
Thank you, Laura.
Unstructured.locals.com, ladies and gentlemen. Bye, guys. Have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend, guys. And
Bye-bye.
I will be tuning in later on tonight.
Woo!
Sounds awesome. All
Thank you, Laura.
You're welcome.
See you in the chat, folks. Yeah, that's Mark and Eric and Mark. Unstructured.locals.com. They have incredible content. Always a lot of fun. I told Eric maybe like over a year ago. It's been a lot longer than that. I mean, his content was so good. And then the Freeform Friday, my locals community loves it. So it was only a matter of time. Pasha, I just want to bring this up. And thanks, by the way. Rich, you earlier mentioned Minnesota, where I live. Superficially, the state of affair here is it's hopeless. Can you elucidate on how it may not be? That turned quite a bit in 2016 on a dime. Minnesota has a very, very long history of doing this. So it's super, super Democratic. Then all of a sudden it's really close, or it can be close. The McCain campaign thought that they actually had a chance to win the state of Minnesota. Remember Norm, Coleman, right? When Al Frank beat him, he did by finding a bunch of ballots in somebody's trunk that just mysteriously weren't counted. So there is a history of this. The question is whether the Twin Cities, which has moved dramatically to the left, this is the perfect example of a suburb that Ron DeSantis and other, establishment Republicans, and he is. Well, he's not, but the people around him are. So I don't know what that makes you when you surround yourself with people, right? My grandmother always said, you are who you surround yourself with. So I'm going to take grandma's advice and just keep, doing that. Keep thinking like that. And their idea is that like Olmsted County is going to move back, or not even move back. It's going to get more Republican. That the Twin City suburbs, there's really 3 counties that Republicans just get crushed there. They think they're going to do better there. In truth, the only one, again, to do better in that area was Trump in 2016. He got leveled in 2020, but in both 16 and 20, if you're looking at Olmsted, that congressional district, we had a special election last year. Everybody was using it as a metric. It wasn't a very good metric on whether Republicans would do better or not. In truth, the Republican did better than other Republican candidates at the congressional level. Trump, however, crushed it in that district and won it by 10 points, but he lost Olmsted County last time. So first and foremost, that's a swinger. It goes back and forth with somebody like Trump on the ticket. If the economy is pretty bad and things are going, where they are right now, it's going to be competitive. Minnesota, Biden, we had Biden by 12, I think, or 13. He wound up winning by 10. We overstated Biden's share there. I remember polling it, and I remember seeing it very clearly. It was a different race. It looked to me that Donald Trump abandoned it, and they did. They had made an initial investment at first, and things looking very, very close there for a while. Again, Trump related. And then COVID changed the dynamic, and Brad Parscale lost his mind, and they were focused on places like, Brad Parscale thought like New Mexico and Colorado were places because of the Hispanic support for Trump. And again, I saw the Hispanic increase in support, but he wasn't measuring it correctly and where it was coming from. And eventually, Bill Priestep, who would later take over, they did not think Minnesota was worth it. So between Minnesota and New Hampshire, they let them both go. That's the truth. That's the God's honest truth. In 16, they did not, which goes to the other question. What did Trump do in 16? He went to all these blue states. I remember polling Minnesota. It was like 2.4% or something, Clinton. And it was very, very, very close. I told Larry Schweikert, who was talking to Steve Bannon at the time, and I was like, Larry, look at how close Minnesota is. Bannon and Trump got on a plane immediately. Boom, right in the heart of Minnesota, right outside the suburbs of the Twin Cities, and held a crazy rally. And he fought for that state, even though they did it last minute and they didn't realize how close it was. I actually think, looking at the Iron Range, if Republicans go back to being the party of non-Trump, the Iron Range will start to drift back toward Democrats. Forget about St. Louis, forget about all that. It's all going to go back. The northwestern part will stay Republican. That's a cultural values thing. But the populism of Trump and like the brawny, lumberjack vote like you see in northwestern Wisconsin, that's what you have in northeastern St. Louis. Trump would obviously have to continue doing better there. If he did as well as he did in 2020 there, and then kept his margins in the southeast and didn't, get as crushed as he did in 20 in the Twin City burbs. He got in the 40s. I think it was 46%. That's really, his magic number. And I'm not talking about individual counties. I'm talking about as a region overall. And he did a little bit better in the Iron Range. He could carry it. He absolutely could. I'm telling you, I know people see the governor's race. I saw Trafalgar polls, thought it would be close, and it didn't turn out to be that close. It's because there is this anti-union sentiment when you think about Republicans. The Democratic Party of Minnesota is not the National Democratic Party. They've remained a separate entity, and as such, they've been able to hold the craziness of the cultural issues at bay. Like they're nuts. So that can't go on forever, or maybe it can. Actually, it could. Not forever. Nothing lasts forever, but it could continue to perpetuate itself if Republicans go like reverse course. Like I do not think we've seen moderate now. We've seen how they perform. They similarly get killed in Ramsey, in Hennepin. They get crushed. So just like Trump gets crushed. And there's really not much different. What is different is whether Trump does better in the first district, second district, areas where Olmsted is. And then, of course, he does better in the northern part of the state. So he would, of course, need to do better, more akin to what he did in 16. But listen, suburban women swing sometimes. I mean, when they swing with cataclysms, they do. So if there's some kind of catastrophic event in the economy or war, believe me, how they feel about being decent at the next Tupperware party falls to the wayside. It does. When you talk about their children, you think they look in love with Glenn Youngkin? No. The gender neutral bathroom stuff killed Democrats in Chesterfield specifically, but that all occurred in Loudoun County, and yet it reverberated all the way to Chesterfield, right? So it's not that they loved Glenn Youngkin or he was any less scary. They love him now. They do, because he's governing like a rock star. But that would have happened anyway. They swing, just like they didn't like Bush either at first, not that much. And then they became national security moms because of terrorism. So, yes, they've gotten more woke as time goes on, but that's exactly my point. The share that you can win back is getting smaller, regardless of whether your name is Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis or Nikki Haley or whatever. Many of them are much more woke than those burbs are more woke than they used to be. They're also less white. So it's, to me, in my mind, a lot better of a course to try to win over some of those non-white men, even non-white women, to replace the white woke woman. Do you really think you're going to win the girl from Pure Food and Wine? I mean, like that woman, she's like a Netflix documentary right now. Signature Bank was the bank she stole all that money from and gave to her con artist husband. All right, that's the coveted suburban white woman. Are you nuts? You think that woman would vote for Ron DeSantis or Nikki Haley? You're delusional. You're totally delusional. You have to realize there's a big part of that. And thank you, Laura, for grabbing the name of that. Did the North Carolina one? I think I got them all, except for Blondie about what is your favorite recipe marinade for beef fajitas meat. Laura, that's on you. Oh, while you're thinking about it, though, Dustin Russell reports of 250,000 jobs added in April. Not added. They recovered, Dustin. Thoughts all notwithstanding rising interest rates, they're going to hurt soon. They are hurting already. Inflation and the banking crisis. What's the polling on economic confidence? Economic confidence is looking better than it did before, like September, October of 2022, but it's still not great. It's not at all. Americans are very, very concerned about the banking crisis. If this was any other president with an R next to their name, it would be their number one financial news story. Everyone knows we're in a very, very precarious situation. Our financial sector is in deep trouble. If you believe Jamie Dimon and the Fed and the rest, then I hope you didn't buy shares of Signature Bank. All right. I don't know what to tell you. They lied about them. They lied. All of these people, they're full of crap. The banking industry is in deep trouble, and they're just hoping that they can get through the election, which the Fed is trying to do. Hike as they can to fight inflation, but not too much so it doesn't cause banking collapses. And in the meantime, race in, print more money, which is going to cause more inflation anyway. And then, steal money from depositors, which is supposed to be an insurance premium payment for the little guy, and give it to the big guy. That's what they're doing right now, trying to hold this thing afloat. And the 250,000 jobs are not great jobs. And that's why real wage growth is down, because while wage growth looks solid, when you put it with inflation, it's just not enough. And again, before COVID, you needed to add 250,000 jobs monthly at least in order to keep up with population increases. Joe Ken has a great response to the jobs report. With all of the people that have come in Joe Biden's administration alone, that number is nothing. We needed the 700,000, 900,000, 1.2 million months we were getting from Trump after he was replaced by Joe Biden. And then Biden used the tail end of his recovery to pretend like he did something. He got this historical job number, in his first term, in his first year. That was the tail end of Trump. And then it started to slow. This isn't good enough. Honestly, that's my response to that. That's not good enough. It was barely good enough before 8 million new people came in, or whatever the number is now. That's not good enough. and those people are going to have children. And the quality of jobs suck. This is the worst part about it. Joe Biden now again, like Barack Obama, has taken us back to a service sector economy, professional class, and all of you little puny servants who have to wait on the educated. Under Trump, he was moving us back to a goods producing economy. 2 reasons why that's much, much better. And you can balance, but you can't forsake goods producing, which is what Democratic policy does. One reason is it makes a healthier, more vibrant working and middle class to have a solid, strong, larger goods producing sector. You don't have to be educated to have a good paying job. And I hate that word educated. You don't have to have a high priced, overpriced college degree to take care of your family. 2, national security. If you don't have a solid, healthy, large, and robust goods producing sector, you can't defend yourself. You can't make the rare minerals necessary. That's why we have to buy them from the Chinese. You can't produce certain PPE quick enough in case there's a pandemic. That's why we had to get it from the Chinese. And you sure as hell cannot turn Detroit into a tank manufacturing haven if, God forbid, we're ever involved in another great power, global great power conflict, which we are marching into right now. By the way, congratulations, Ukraine. You used a air defense system paid for by the West to shoot down a drone over Kiev that was your own drone donated to you by the West. This is such a and all of these Twitter propaganda accounts, all they do is constantly, every day, fire off. That's the one I quote tweeted. All he does every day. It's probably the CIA or it's Ukraine themselves, but that account is pure propaganda. It came out of nowhere for this war. All they do is fire off propaganda before you hear the truth. And then all these idiots, like the other one I made fun of, they all just grab onto it and pretend like it's gospel. 3 hours later, you find out it's our own drone. Look at the columns of Ukraine soldiers leaving the NATO bases to launch an offensive. You mean the same NATO bases that the other 60,000 left and were trained at last year? They're all dead. Only the difference is these kids look 16. So, I know that was a long answer, Dustin, but, things they're not good. And people do feel that it's not what they are, portraying it to be. All right. So, wow, it's 2:27 already. I'm going to rock out of here. Book club, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right there behind me. Bernard Balin, The Ideological Origins of the American Revolution. Fantastic. This book club is great. And also this book, I'm pleasantly surprised because it reads as wonky, but the lessons that we're taking from each chapter, which are critical to understanding the founding of this nation, they're coming across loud and clear, and we're having a great debate over it. It's not only for local supporters now on YouTube. If you are a member, a subscriber, or member on YouTube, I will post it in the community section before the book club, right around usually 2 o'clock, sometimes a little bit earlier, but we'll give you the code to the Zoom link and everything, and you can join as well. You do not need the book to join the book club. All right. Locals, keep your eyes peeled for some polling nuggets. They will start trickling out. We'll go into the polling results in great detail in the shows on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, but you will local. That's obviously the benefit of being a locals member. And maybe I'll do a quick video between locals supporters and YouTube members only, where we can go over some of the nuggets that I put out. I don't want to promise anything, but that's what I want to do because I want to explain what I'm seeing like I did today, only in greater detail. As a matter of fact, I'll just give you a little bit of a tease here real quick. Look at how much better Trump is doing in the online sample, how badly he's outperforming DeSantis. That's why you see him doing better in the Harvard-Harris poll. That's why you see him doing better in YouGov, Reuters, even Morning Consult, all these others. And the phone polling that reaches older people, DeSantis looks like he's doing better than he is in the online sample. This is something we have to explore because I'm telling you, in the last 3 presidential elections, the online panels did better. They did. All right. So with that in mind,
I just wanted to say for the marinade, it's pretty simple.
All
you have to use is adobo. All right. And that's the one with the pepper in it. And then you use a little bit of paprika, some garlic. Definitely need cilantro. Cumin is your
Jeez,
friend.
I'm
Do
hungry.
not open a taco packet, please, of seasoning. Do this and it will taste great.
You can do it without.
Yes.
You
And
can do it on your own. Trust yourselves.
yes. And for heat wise, depending on how spicy you want it, I do chili pepper on top of that. And then I let it soak in and then I cook it, just so you know.
That was awesome advice by Laura. Real quick before we go, don't forget, if you can, it's time to do my spiel. First of all, thank you to the sponsors for Patriots, Jam and Bean. The links are in the description, which are discount codes. Take advantage of it. Give us our feedback. We'd love to hear it. If you haven't supported the public polling project, if you can, we'd very much appreciate it. Share it far and wide. All right. We obviously are not, it's been off cycle time, so we're not hitting targets. So we want to still poll. So we are doing it. So, your continued support there is very much
helpful.
Yeah. Share it far and wide to like-minded people who want to see transparent and honest polling. All right. And we'll get that going. We'll be on Bannon at I don't know if it's going to be this weekend, but next week. I was talking to Steve before about talking about this poll. All right. Mm-hmm. Also trying to increase our donor base so it doesn't, like the burden isn't so heavy on the current contributors. So it's a crowdfunded project. Remember that. So do what you can, share it far and wide. Any amounts appreciated. Really is. And of course, sign up for locals. Join the revolution in data journalism. peoplespundit.locals.com. All right. I guess with all that said, deuces, right, Laura?
Deuces, and have a blessed weekend.
And a safe
one. See you all Sunday.
See you all Sunday. See you guys.
You wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. Toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Welcome to Inside the Numbers.